In this opening chapter, the story follows a soul thrust from ordinary existence into a world of hidden martial destiny. He ponders the mundanity of his past, wondering if his life ever rose above the average. The weight of that doubt settles like a cold mist over his thoughts. Still carrying the weight of that uncertainty, he recalls his mother's battle with pancreatic cancer that claimed her life a year ago, leaving only a mountain of debt behind. The memory of her struggle presses upon him like an unrelenting tide. Before he could steady himself, the thought of whether his mother would be proud flickers within, tangled with his own feeling of inadequacy. That lingering doubt gnaws at his resolve, haunting each breath he draws. With that lingering doubt still echoing, he finds his mind drifting to a keepsake his father once treasured, a silent relic now bearing the imprint of lost generations. The object stands as a fragile bridge between his fragmented past and the unknown ahead. Yet beneath that quiet reverence, he confronts the stark truth that he possesses nothing else in his life beyond the weight of memories. The emptiness stretches before him like a desert waiting for a single drop of rain. Before the void could swallow him entirely, his mind clings to the image of a solitary necklace, the sole tangible reminder of the world he once inhabited. Its simple chain glints with a muted promise of identity. Still bearing the echo of that solitary token, he asks himself why he remains alive when everything else has slipped away. The question hangs heavy, a wound unhealed by time. Before the darkness of that question could consume him, Sangam Hwi awakens, his eyes opening to a reality reshaped by unseen forces. The sudden resurgence of life breathes a faint hope into the surrounding gloom. Yet still searching for a sign, he wonders whether any word has reached him from Master Bang. The silence from his mentor feels like a void that deepens his isolation. Meanwhile, the memory of Master Bang surfaces, a Suzhou general who once monopolized salt and iron in Anhui, casting a shadow of power over the barren landscape of his thoughts. The recollection adds weight to the unanswered call. With the ghost of that authority lingering, he turns his inquiry toward the Hua clan of the Sword Sect, seeking their cryptic counsel. Their silence becomes another stone in his growing path of uncertainty. Before he could decipher their intent, Hua Siamayang, the junior sect leader, appears, having received 2,000 coins as an intermediary, a token that hints at hidden transactions. The exchange fuels a flicker of intrigue amid the murk. Still pondering the murmur of coin and motive, he reflects on Jo Hwi's family, a blacksmith father, a wise mother, and an older brother who forged his path as a Jianghu martial artist. Their lineage looms as a silent testament to the blood that courses through his veins. With that lineage echoing, he recalls how he memorized the Chanja and Analects in a relentless 3-month grind, words etching themselves into his mind like fire. The achievement stands as a solitary beacon of discipline. Yet the flood of knowledge that poured into his consciousness overwhelms him, a vast, unknown tide that scours his sanity, leaving unbearable sensations in its wake. The onslaught feels like a storm cracking the very walls of his mind. Before he could anchor himself, chaos erupts, convincing him that a dimensional shift has fractured his reality, while the pain of his former death haunts the edges of his thoughts. The dissonance reverberates, tearing at the fragile threads of his perception. With bewilderment seething, he cries out to the empty void, demanding an answer to what this swirling maelstrom truly is. The question reverberates, a stark reminder of his fractured existence. Still yearning for clarity, he asks what he must do to live again, clutching at any ember of hope that might ignite his rebirth. The desperate plea drifts like smoke between worlds. Before any guidance can appear, he enumerates possible roles he might assume, noting his limited experience as a thin veil over his aspirations. The inventory of futures flickers, each one a dim candle in the encroaching dusk. Yet the thought of becoming a martial arts master glimmers, prompting him to wonder if a nearby master could be found to forge his path. The prospect of mentorship becomes a compass pointing toward redemption. With that compass steadying his resolve, he acknowledges that this unnamed master, the one who knows martial arts best, stands as the key to unlocking his dormant potential. The acknowledgement steadies his trembling heart. Still seeking validation, his brother asks if he feels any improvement, noting his newfound ability to move, and probes where this knowledge was forged. The sibling is inquiry slices through the lingering fog of doubt. Before his brother can press further, he confronts an unseen figure, declaring that he has crossed prefectures in relentless pursuit of martial truth. The declaration reverberates, a testament to his unyielding determination. Yet amidst that proclamation, he identifies the runaway who abandoned his roots to chase martial mastery, a shadow slipping through the corridors of his memory. The identification sharpens his focus on the path ahead. Still tangled in the web of past mentors, he questions whether learning from older generations would prove more arduous than his current quest. The doubt knits itself into the fabric of his resolve. Before the weight of that contemplation could settle, he labels his brother as foolish, refusing to entertain his criticisms. The rejection carves a cold edge into their strained bond. Yet the world of legends looms beyond, their rare appearances rendering the dream of learning directly from them an unimaginable fantasy. The unattainable glimmers, fueling both awe and frustration. Still clinging to the remnants of hope, he urges the unnamed figure to abandon lingering doubts, insisting that this is the best they can offer. The urging becomes a fragile bridge toward acceptance. Before the plea could settle, he casts a harsh critique upon martial arts novels, denouncing the myth of meeting masters as a scam that feeds false dreams. The condemnation reverberates, a bitter echo of his own disillusionment. Still haunted by the weight of his doubts, he whispers a desperate yearning to extend his life, insisting that this lingering existence feels far better than the finality of death. The longing hangs heavy, a silent oath to persevere. 2 months had slipped away since their weary feet first set foot on the Central Plains, each sunrise a reminder of the path they had chosen. Still carrying the weight of unfamiliar horizons, they felt the plains stretch endlessly before them. Meanwhile, each morning the older brother stooped over the smoky furnace, shaping charcoal and sweeping the workshop as ashes, his motions a silent rhythm of survival. By afternoon, an unnamed figure stepped to the door, offering courteous nods to any traveler who entered, attempting to draw a whisper of commerce into the stale air. With that routine settled, their father managed to secure a handful of silver coins, a modest windfall that steadied the household's trembling stomach. For the first time in weeks, hunger ceased to gnaw at their throats, and the simple act of sharing a meal felt like an unspoken victory. Yet beneath that calm, a bitter truth surfaced: every coin they had counted traced back to a loan shark's grasp. The revelation hung heavy like a storm cloud over the modest kitchen, turning each clink of silver into a cruel reminder of their indebtedness. With that realization lingering, they devised a desperate scheme to claw their way out, borrowing more to purchase iron ore, hoping the metal's value could fund the daily necessities that sustained them. The plan teetered on a razor's edge, promising relief but threatening a deeper plunge into the lender's claw. Before they could steady themselves, an unforgiving deadline loomed. Failure to settle the balance within a single month would spell their ruin. The ticking clock pressed against their hearts, each passing day a reminder that salvation was slipping farther away. Even the nourishment on their plates tasted of the lone shark's shadow, each bite flavored with the bitter cost of survival. It was a hollow comfort, a reminder that even their sustenance was laced with debt. With that bitter taste still fresh, the family sensed the walls closing in, the realization that they were truly at a dead end. Every avenue seemed to circle back to the same looming creditor, leaving hope frayed and thin. Yet beyond the crushing debt, the stench of rot and neglect clawed at their senses, the household's hygiene a chaotic jumble of filth. The unbearable odor seeped into their lungs, turning even rest into a trial of endurance. Amidst the filth, a rare reprieve emerged. The meals before them were the most satisfying they had enjoyed in ages. For fleeting moments, the rich flavors softened the harsh edges of their daily struggle. Despite that fleeting comfort, the resolve hardened: they could not continue down this path and must overhaul everything within these walls. A quiet determination settled, urging them to dismantle the failing routine and forge a new course. With options narrowed, the stark truth settled: there was nothing better to pursue than the desperate measures that lay ahead. The vacuum of opportunity pressed them toward a singular, grueling choice. In the wake of that acceptance, they completed the first small venture, a modest achievement that marked a turning point. The finished piece stood as a quiet testament to their willingness to act. Observing the completed work, the brother inquired about their purpose, his curiosity cutting through the lingering uncertainty. His question echoed the family's collective yearning for direction. Before the answer could fully form, they retreated back inside, the doors closing on the restless outside world. The quiet interior offered a brief sanctuary for scheming minds. Once within the cramped space, they turned to one another, demanding clarity about the chaotic spread of materials before them. The question hung in the air, seeking purpose amidst scattered tools. With uncertainty still thick, they begged for a plan, gesturing that the work should proceed in a specific manner. Their plea carried the weight of desperation, hoping the method would yield the breakthrough they needed. As the plan took shape, a spark of optimism ignited. They imagined the finished goods could be sold, turning the effort into a sudden jackpot. The prospect of profit flickered like a distant lantern in their dim circumstances. Driven by the budding hope, they requested a single tool, then quickly added a plea for a second, knowing the workload demanded more. The additional equipment felt like a key to unlocking the promised windfall. Armed with the new tools, they surged forward, managing to sell 250 toothbrushes within 2 frantic hours, amassing 500 iron coins, equivalent to 5 silvers. The rapid transaction surged through the workshop like a bolt of unexpected fortune. The sweat of that sprint translated into a bold tally, 5 silvers earned in a mere 2 hours, a sum that gleamed brighter than any previous earnings. It breathed a fleeting vigor into the family's weary spirits. With that windfall sparking momentum, they catalogued the humble components of their craft, fur, wood, and adhesive, and resolved to accelerate production. The simple materials, now alchemical, promised a rapid cascade of value. Envisioning communal effort, they calculated that if every family member joined, they could forge roughly 3,000 toothbrushes within half a month. The sheer scale of output transformed the modest workshop into a potential engine of salvation. Balancing ambition with practicality, they projected that a modest price increase coupled with complete sales would generate around 80 silvers, enough to settle the looming loan. The figure glimmered like a lifeline amidst the storm of debt. The vision of clearing the debt blossomed into thoughts of another jackpot, a sudden leap toward wealth beyond survival. Dreams of richness began to whisper through the clatter of the workshop. Thus, with clarity sharpening, they set their target unmistakably, 3,000 toothbrushes, each a step toward financial freedom. The goal stood like a beacon, urging every hand to labor. Innovating beyond the basics, they unveiled a special toothbrush fashioned from rice and sweet water, promising to eradicate lingering cooking smells. The new design attracted eager interest, and they requested an order of 10 such pieces. Expanding their appeal, they introduced a child-friendly version, tailored to the delicate needs of the youngest customers. The miniature variant broadened their market, hinting at further demand. Facing the ticking deadline, they turned to each other, pleading for guidance on the next decisive step. The question lingered, heavy with the weight of impending repayment. With the calendar unforgiving, only 15 days remained before the loan demanded its full return. Every heartbeat now counted, and the urgency sharpened their resolve. He moves through the tasks with a speed that seems to cut the very air, leaving the chaos of the day settled before he has even finished the first breath. The world around him blurs under his relentless efficiency. Still carrying the momentum of that swift resolution, his brother steps forward, questioning the scarcity of water and warning against washing his hair. The simple request hangs heavy, a reminder that even in rapid triumph basic needs linger. Before he could steady himself, the brother adds that washing must wait until the day after tomorrow, noting that fetching water alone consumes 2 long hours. The delay feels like another chain binding the household to its daily grind. With that lingering patience, the morning light floods the modest home as he greets the sunrise and asks if his siblings slept well. The question drifts like a gentle breeze, seeking warmth in the fragile bonds of family. Yet beneath that calm, a sharp rebuke erupts. He questions whether the man even possesses a brain, while the family pretends a feigned concern. The sarcasm cuts through the morning air, exposing the thin veneer of their care. Still reeling from that accusation, he observes the frantic gathering of materials for toothbrushes, marveling at how the newcomer calculates the needed amount faster than a sip of tea. The speed of his mind feels almost supernatural against the backdrop of ordinary chores. Before the awe could settle, he admits it is his first time witnessing such rapid calculation, and the shock registers in his eyes. The revelation fuels a restless curiosity about the stranger's hidden depths. With that astonishment still echoing, he likens the swift arithmetic to the merchant's ledger, asking whether the bookworm is learning multiplication for the first time. The comparison underlines the gap between their worlds. Yet the contemplation deepens as he declares that the people here barely know the multiplication table at all. The admission casts a shadow over the village's humble education. Still grasping the significance of that ignorance, he notes that mastering the 4 basic operations is held as essential, while the stranger mutters complex terms beyond his comprehension. The contrast sharpens the sense of an unseen intellect walking among them. Before the frustration could dissolve, he acknowledges that they have scarcely progressed beyond the ancient Chanja texts. The stagnation feels like a wall hemming in their potential. Yet a spark of reverence flickers as he reveals he has retained Jo Hwi's memories and spent 20 years preparing for the civil service examination. The weight of centuries-old wisdom settles upon his shoulders. With that legacy bearing down, he confesses that all this knowledge stems from the modern era he once knew. The revelation bridges 2 disparate ages in a single breath. Before the awe could bloom, he warns that such a torrent of information is dangerous and perhaps too much to wield. The caution hangs like a warning flag over his ambitious mind. Yet the cascade continues as he enumerates topics: wealth of nations, microeconomics, division of labor, contract theory, utility maximization, zero-sum games, supply and demand, behavioral economics, each a blade of modern thought. The torrent threatens to overwhelm the modest workshop around him. Still reeling from that intellectual avalanche, he dismisses the previous jargon as nonsense and insists he holds an idea that must be realized. The resolve hardens, turning speculation into purpose. Before the plan could fully form, he laments the difficulty of operating the workshop, inquiring how many more silvers might be borrowed, only to be met with an unequivocal no. The refusal tightens the constraints around his burgeoning vision. Yet the pressure mounts as he foresees their arms being chopped off within 10 days, yet they still clamor for additional funds. The impending loss sharpens the desperation in his voice. With that grim prospect lingering, he evaluates the anvil as worth at 50, combining the value of tools and raw material. The calculation becomes a cold metric in a world on the brink of bloodshed. Still feeling the weight of those numbers, he reminds them of the credibility earned from a lifetime spent within the workshop's walls. The reputation, however modest, becomes a currency of its own. Before the admiration could settle, he probes whether the boldness displayed is a lifelong trait. The question pierces the facade, seeking the source of such daring. Yet the ambition surges forward. They will establish Jo clan as Iron Kingdom in the Anli province. The vision expands like a furnace igniting the night sky. While the dream takes shape, he asks if they are oblivious to the existing workshop that already knows the Iron Kingdom better than any outsider. The reminder casts a shadow of competition over their grand design. Still measuring the market, he declares that each ingot currently costs 3 silvers based on the prevailing average price. The figure becomes a keystone in the delicate balance of supply and demand. With that cost in mind, he proposes making the iron plow the flagship product, while slashing the price of every other good. The strategy seeks to undercut rivals and flood the market with affordability. Yet he calls it absurd to sell the iron plow for merely 28 silvers. The paradox of profit versus generosity sharpens the tension in his calculations. Before the absurdity could dissolve, he notes that extracting steel could be completed within 4 days if the father works with fresh ingots. The promise of rapid production offers a glimmer of feasibility. Still contemplating the timeline, he explains that within those 4 days they will endure pain to sell the plow for 20 iron, with Jack's wage set at 10 iron coins, totaling 40. The arithmetic of hardship and reward intertwines. Yet curiosity remains as he asks whether any place in the province already offers giant iron plows for 28 silvers, noting that word would draw swarms of buyers. The market his appetite becomes palpable. Still mapping the workforce, he declares they will begin by employing 20 people, with the father overseeing most of their training. The mentorship forms the backbone of the fledgling enterprise. Before the hiring could finalize, he takes personal charge of training, assigning each unit a 6-hour shift and stipulating a requirement of 4 workers per rotation. The schedule carves order from the chaos of novices. Yet he refines the plan, stating that 2 workers suffice for a single task within an hour, but 4 are needed to sustain the 6-hour cycle. The efficiency calculations echo his earlier lightning pace. Still aware of the novice's inexperience, he insists that until they can gauge fire temperature, constant supervision is mandatory. The vigilance becomes a safeguard against molten disaster. Before the oversight could ease, he declares that 8 forgers must form the core of Jo Clan's workshop, demanding proper education and care for each. The need for skilled artisans becomes the cornerstone of the Iron Kingdom. Yet he balances the forge with commerce, explaining each unit is 2-person structure across 2 6-hour shifts while he himself handles sales and promotion, noting the pressing demand for more manpower. The dual focus on production and market fuels his resolve. Still driving forward, he projects an initial output of 20 iron plows, with production poised to rise steadily thereafter. The modest start seeds the ambition of an expanding empire. Before the numbers could settle, he calculates an expected profit of 400 iron coins, equivalent to 4 silvers, leaving 2 silvers after wages, and vows to reinvest every remaining coin after covering ingot costs and expenses. The financial loop circles back to sustain growth. Yet the sheer scale of the presentation leaves him speechless, and he spends the night awake, eyes glued to the latest Apple releases for inspiration. The modern glow of technology seeps into his medieval strategy. Still reverent of the craft, he declares that each artisan must possess a soul that breathes life into iron, organizing roles for continuous production aimed at earning 60 silvers each month. The vision transcends mere profit, seeking art in metallurgy. Before the ideal could fully bloom, he acknowledges that mastering every forging step would demand a lifetime, questioning what becomes of those who abandon the pretended craftsman his path. The doubt casts a lingering shadow over his grand design. Yet he ends by challenging the assembly, asking if they truly possess the confidence to see the Iron Kingdom rise from their hands. The final query reverberates like the hammer is echo in a silent forge. He consents to hand over the management of the workshop, entrusting the new overseers to keep its fires alive. The decision feels like a sacrifice of his own authority, yet a pragmatic step toward survival. Still bearing the weight of that concession, he envisions a revolutionary production system, echoes of England's Ford era, poised to reshape the workshop his rhythm. The prospect of mechanized efficiency flickers like a distant lantern in the murky courtyard. With the vision of industrial overhaul still fresh, his wounded feet remind him that ambition cannot outrun pain. He insists on replacing his shoes before any coin can be earned, each step a reminder of his fragile condition. Still feeling the sting of his swollen soles, he questions the purpose of being a craftsman when naivete blinds one to life's harsh realities. The thought gnaws at him like rust on a blade, demanding a deeper resolve. Carrying that lingering doubt, he gestures toward the third customer of the young master, directing him to wait elsewhere. The quiet command adds a layer of order to the growing chaos of the workshop. Still holding the scene of the redirected patron, he offers thanks, likening the helpful figure to a keen-eyed gatekeeper of a merchant guild. The comparison underscores the rare clarity he finds amidst the confusion. With gratitude still echoing in his mind, he observes that those who leave the workshop rarely wear a smile, their faces bearing the weight of unfulfilled expectations. He concludes that their departure should be effortless, a subtle relief to the strained atmosphere. Still pondering the somber expressions of departing workers, he inquires how many silvers are required to keep the enterprise afloat. The simple question carries the tremor of desperation beneath its surface. While the calculation of silver lingers, he finds himself polishing the floor, each stroke a moment of regret. The gleam beneath his hands reflects the weight of missed opportunities. Still haunted by the sheen of the polished boards, he warns that this may become the greatest mistake he ever makes, demanding clarification of the words spoken. The impending dread settles like dust on the workshop's beams. Carrying that warning forward, he enumerates steel tools and their market values, totaling 40 to 50 silvers as collateral. The cold ledger of metal feels like a tangible promise against looming failure. Still clutching the list of steel, he adds further items, pushing the collateral total to 50 silvers. The arithmetic sharpens the tension, each asset a thread in a fragile tapestry. With the inventory accounted for, he explains the measurement units and inquires about the remaining 150 silvers. The unanswered gap hangs heavy, a void awaiting resolution. Still seeking the missing sum, he declares that relatives in their 20s and 30s are offering their lives as collateral. The sacrifice feels like a stark barter with fate itself. Carrying the solemn pledge of blood and kin, he notes that the price of lives on the black market would surpass the needed 150 silvers. The grim arithmetic underscores the depth of desperation. While the grim market values echo, he deems the deal reasonable, yet mentions a handling fee and warns of severe consequences should payment lag, especially regarding slavery. The threat hangs like a blade over the negotiations. Still aware of the looming deadline, he points out a fresh opportunity to seal a new agreement. The possibility flickers as a fragile beacon amid the oppressive gloom. Carrying that glimmer of opportunity, he proposes supplying all listed items to the Fire Dragon Merchant Group at 70% of market price. The concession feels both strategic and sacrificial. Still weighing the Fire Dragon's terms, he mentions a massive iron plow valued at 28 silvers and asks whether a written contract can be drawn immediately. The urgency sharpens the atmosphere like a hammer striking an anvil. With the contract looming, he threatens to present the same plans to the Milky White Merchant Group if they abandon the partnership. The warning drips with the cold calculation of a man who knows leverage. Still holding the specter of betrayal, he turns to the young master, asking what command he issues next. The query hangs, awaiting a decision that could steer the workshop's fate. Carrying the master's silent command, he declares that whatever he sells, be it a slave or a prostitute, will remain outside the other's concern. The stark detachment underscores the ruthless economics at play. Still echoing that cold indifference, he notes that the offered collateral cannot be repaid. The inevitability of default settles like ash in the forge. With the impossibility of repayment looming, he proclaims that manpower is the most common resource, placing a for-hire sign at the market entrance. The call summons those willing to trade sweat for coin. Still standing before the freshly hung sign, he initiates a one-by-one interview of hopeful candidates. Each face becomes a potential cog in his expanding machine. Carrying the steady rhythm of interviews, he expresses disbelief at the sheer number of people gathered. The crowd's magnitude feels like a tide pressing against the workshop's doors. Still awed by the numbers, he declares that overly talkative individuals will be rejected, deeming them dishonest and likely to spark division. The rule slices through the murmurs like a blade. With the talkers dismissed, he states that weak-bodied aspirants are also turned away, their frailty unsuited for the demanding labor. The exclusion sharpens the workshop's resolve. Still filtering the crowd, he adds that slow-witted candidates will not be tolerated. The criteria tighten, forging a hardened workforce. Carrying the string of rejections, he notes that naive newcomers would disrupt the workflow and are therefore eliminated. The purge leaves only those tempered by experience. Still amidst the refined selection, he asks what stands as the most essential skill in any business. The query probes the very heart of his emerging enterprise. Carrying the answer within the crowd, he welcomes the new members of the Jo workshop, extending a solemn invitation to join his vision. The welcome rings like a forge's bell, marking a new chapter. Still echoing the welcome, he instructs that everyone gather at dawn, regardless of shift, to familiarize themselves with the workshop's layout. The early meeting promises unity before the day as labor begins. With the sunrise gathering set, he presents a written contract, assigning selected men to the role of charcoal burners and urging them to read it carefully. The parchment becomes the binding oath of their future toil. Still holding the contract aloft, he asks what the overtime bonus of 2 iron coins per hour for charcoal burners entails. The question seeks to clarify the thin thread of extra reward. Carrying the answer, he confirms that the overtime pay is simply the additional salary owed for extra hours. The explanation lands with the steadiness of a measured strike. Still discussing compensation, he outlines that workers may rest every 7 days, receiving holiday pay equal to 70% of the regular wage, 7 iron coins. The promise of rest glimmers as a rare mercy. With the rest schedule set, he emphasizes that salaries will still be paid on rest days, underscoring the importance of recuperation for maintaining strength. The assurance steadies the workers' weary hearts. Still reinforcing the benefits, he mentions a daily bonus for charcoal production and a 50% raise based on volume measurements. The incentive brightens the labor is horizon. Carrying the promise of increased earnings, he declares that after a full year of work, an additional 5-day annual leave will be granted the following year, with salaries doubled. The future glints like polished steel. Still outlining the contract as a lure, he warns that all agreements are identical and that leaking workshop secrets will result in immediate termination. The threat hangs like a scorched seal over the pact. With the stern warning still resonating, he reassures the recruits that they need not worry about wages, insisting his workshop pays more than any other. The final promise steadies the air, cementing their reluctant commitment. The artisans understood that the true key lay in shaping the metal to the exact form while minimizing waste. Their relentless focus on precision turned each cast into a silent promise of efficiency. Yet beneath the clatter of the forge, a whispered truth lingered that status forged a man his identity as surely as any hammer. The lingering belief that status makes a person weighed heavily on every worker's shoulders. Still carrying the burden of that belief, the workshop faced the grim reality of loan sharks and mounting expenses, leaving the silver to last only 10 days. An additional 3 days were desperately needed to finish the looming task. With that pressure mounting, Yalva's hushed warning echoed that this would truly be the last chance. The air grew thick with the certainty of finality. 3 days later, the furnace still glowed, yet the weight of Yalva's words lingered like ash. The clock ticked forward, sealing the fate of those who toiled. Meanwhile, the workers proved to be extraordinarily efficient, turning raw ore into finished parts with relentless speed. Their swift motion seemed to challenge the looming deadline. Before he could steady himself, he forged a solitary plow over 4 grueling days, feeding the fire with charcoal that crackled like resolve. The lone creation stood as a testament to personal endurance. With that achievement still fresh, he demanded the return of 40% of the profits, a stern claim that cut through the lingering fatigue. The demand hung in the air like a sharpened blade. Yet beneath that tension, the molders finally rested, their bodies trembling from hours of relentless labor. Their brief respite whispered of both relief and the inevitability of more work. Still carrying the memory of their weariness, the workshop realized the need for more anvils as the number of forgers swelled, producing countless iron plows. The clamor of expanding production echoed through the halls. A year passed, and the relentless rhythm of hammer and fire became the pulse of the clan. Seasons turned, but the forge's glow never waned. Meanwhile, Manager Lee was welcomed back into the bustling courtyard, his arrival stirring a quiet hope among the weary crew. His presence seemed to kindle a faint promise of order. With that approval, the latest report crowned Manager Lee as the day's top performer, though the workers in the Sosan building still lagged behind. The contrast highlighted the lingering inadequacies within the ranks. Yet beneath the managerial accolades, the Jo clan's workshop stretched across 3 distinct buildings, Daesan for massive iron works, Sosan for modest farming tools, and Jisan for cutting-edge technology. Each wing pulsed with its own purpose. Still carrying the weight of their diverse outputs, the Jisan building churned out safes, padlocks, carriages, and other intricate devices, forging a bridge between raw metal and refined engineering. Its productions reflected the clan's ambition to master both brute strength and subtle craft. Before he could steady his thoughts, he muttered that they should have been told earlier, a sigh that resonated with missed opportunities. The regret lingered like a cold draft through the workshop. With that confession still echoing, he reached out to Jo Hwi, his voice heavy with the memory of his brother. The connection hinted at a deeper bond forged by shared hardship. Meanwhile, nerves tightened after 3 days of drinking, and he feared his brother might fall to death once more. The anxiety folded into the shadows of the forge. Yet beneath that unease, the results revealed an inability to handle the burden, a truth that sat uneasily within him. The realization tightened like a rope around his resolve. Before the night deepened, he promised to bring Maotai distilled wine next time and to confirm the promised silver, a pledge meant to restore some semblance of trust. The vow shimmered faintly against the gloom. Still carrying the weight of those promises, the lingering issue with the sponsors demanded settlement. Their unresolved debts hovered like a storm on the horizon. With that tension unresolved, they contemplated cloaking their cheap iron products under the name of the Fire Dragon Merchant Guild. The subterfuge whispered of desperate ingenuity. Meanwhile, for half a year he had been dispatching goods across Anli, thousands of carts arriving like bloodstreams feeding the clan his lifeblood. The scale of distribution weighed heavily on his conscience. Before the next wave could strike, he asked what would become of the workshop should officials storm the premises. The speculative question cut through the bustling activity. Still carrying the fear of that hypothetical raid, he noted that nothing had transpired yet and urged continued focus on the Fire Dragon front. The calmness masked a simmering dread. Yet beneath that calm, he affirmed that Hylingnim could keep deterring their enemies, a reassurance that clung to the workshop's fragile morale. The confidence was a thin shield against looming threats. Meanwhile, Hyungnim whispered rumors and mentioned a gift of shoes from the Treasure Merchant Group, a token that hinted at hidden alliances. The subtle exchange stirred curiosity among the observers. With that intrigue lingering, he questioned whether profit alone bound people, noting a month had passed since merchants voiced protest. The reflection deepened the sense of moral fatigue. Still carrying the weight of those grievances, he observed how lives now hung in the balance as swarms converged upon him. The pressure mounted like an invisible tide. Yet beneath that desperation, he revealed that he had already conceived a solution, a thought born from sleepless nights. The hint of strategy brightened the oppressive dusk. Meanwhile, he urged everyone to watch closely, promising that the answer would soon unfold. The call for vigilance resonated like a drumbeat. Before the veil could lift, he inquired about the net revenue garnered in a month from operating Jo Clan's workshop. The question pierced the haze of uncertainty. With that inquiry still hanging, the answer emerged, essentially 60 gold. The modest sum glimmered as both triumph and limitation. Still carrying the weight of that figure, he noted that only a handful of places ever achieved such earnings. The rarity underscored the workshop's precarious standing. Yet beneath that acknowledgement, his greatest fear surfaced: those who intended to devour the Jo Clan's legacy. The dread tightened like a vice around his thoughts. With that fear still echoing, he declared that his decision had been made, a resolve forged in the furnace of anxiety. The finality rang clear in the silent workshop. Meanwhile, a group of Imperial clan disciples assembled, led by Master Swordsman of the royal family's 5th generation, their presence a silent storm on the horizon. Their formation signaled an impending clash of wills. Before the gathering could converge, he questioned whether anyone truly believed such an outcome was possible. The doubt lingered, casting a shadow over the gathering's resolve. Downtown Jangbong Prefecture sprawls beneath a bruised sky, its crowded alleys and lanternlit storefronts humming with restless energy. The atmosphere feels heavy with the promise of conflict waiting to ignite. Still carrying the weight of the city's restless pulse, an unnamed figure leans into the din, questioning the sudden commotion drifting from a nearby brothel. The whispered rumors of a fight ripple through the night, hinting at trouble that could scar the streets. Before he could steady himself, another voice cuts through the murmur, wondering whether the clash is genuine or merely a staged spectacle. The doubt hangs like a shroud, casting uncertainty over the escalating tension. Yet beneath that uncertainty, the tale of two weapons emerges: a machete named Ho Wonmun, a soldier hungry for fame yet lacking a true warrior's soul, and the sword Sa Jiamhi, revered as an embodiment of authentic martial spirit. Their contrasting legacies underscore the thin line between ambition and honor. With that realization lingering, a questioning presence turns to Yalra, probing why the accusation of not being a warrior has been cast upon them. The doubt gnaws at the core, demanding proof beyond mere words. Meanwhile, an inquisitive figure steps forward, demanding to know the identity of the one before them. The simple query ripples through the gathered crowd, seeking a name to anchor the swirling doubts. Still carrying the weight of that inquiry, a stark warning echoes: avert your gaze from the outlaws even for a heartbeat, and they will slither forward like mindless worms. The admonition freezes the air, underscoring the peril of complacency. Before the warning could settle, a resolve forms as the participants recall the past incident that drove them toward the South Palace. The memory fuels a collective determination to seek answers within its imposing walls. Yet beneath that resolve, a voice recalls the first encounter, insisting the memory cannot be erased. The lingering impression of that moment sharpens their purpose, binding them to the unfolding path. Still haunted by that first meeting, another confession emerges, expressing disbelief at the outcome, offering only resolve, and receiving silver in return. The transaction feels hollow, a bitter reminder of sacrifice measured in metal. Before the weight of those silvers could settle, a daring thought surfaces: if given a chance to turn back time, they would trade 10,000 silvers for a single thousand, daring to venture through the South Royal residence with nothing left to lose. The question hangs: will death finally claim them, or will they emerge unscathed? With that daring sentiment lingering, a stunned exclamation breaks the tension, echoing the disbelief of those present. The simple "or" reverberates like a distant bell, marking the gravity of the gamble. Meanwhile, a heartfelt wish is whispered, hoping for a safe return to a brother awaiting home. The sentiment adds a thread of familial hope to the fabric of danger. Still bearing that hope, a bold inquiry is directed at the boss, questioning whether the workshop is, in fact, his father. The implication drapes the atmosphere with layers of lineage and duty. Before the question could settle, another figure mentions a request for proper attire, pondering an unspecified matter that hangs in the air. The subtle insistence on appearance hints at deeper customs obscured by mystery. Yet beneath the sartorial concern, a declaration rings out: regardless of all rumors, it is this individual who restored the clan to Yal and is destined to bear the torch for the next generation. The proclamation cements their role as the linchpin of renewal. With that destiny proclaimed, the speaker turns to their father, challenging how such words could be spoken, acknowledging that every possibility was forged through his guidance. The reverence underscores a bond that shapes their very existence. Meanwhile, a confident promise declares that Di shall ascend as clan chief and receive the yet unspecified honor that awaits. The future leadership glimmers on the horizon like a sunrise over battlefields. Still echoing the promise, a puzzling déjà vu is raised, recalling that the father once experienced the same uncanny sensation. The shared memory suggests a cyclical thread woven through the clan's lineage. Before the echo of déjà vu could fade, a solemn duty is articulated: the power must be passed to a worthy heir, ever present at the neck, for those bestowed with the Yuichin Crimson carry a mission beyond themselves. The weight of that mantle presses like iron, demanding vigilance. Yet beneath that mission, curiosity probes the necklace, identified as the Jo clan's treasure, questioning whether it now inhabits the body of an ancient ancestor. The speculation blurs the line between relic and legacy. With that contemplation lingering, a concern arises about the crimson jade's silence, as if something wrong unsettles its normally resonant voice. The silence becomes an omen, hinting at a hidden rupture. Meanwhile, a recount of a lingering dream follows, sparked by prolonged gazes upon the crimson jade, revealing its nature far beyond a mere object, and urging the heart to remain ever prepared. The dream serves as a warning, whispering of unseen dangers. Still haunted by those visions, a simple question pierces the tension, seeking the name of the bearer. The inquiry underscores the yearning for identity amidst mystery. Before the name could be offered, Jo Hwi steps forward, introducing himself and inviting a conversation free of pretenses. His presence grounds the swirling uncertainties with a tangible voice. Yet beneath Jo Hwi's introduction, a doubt surfaces. Never having received the blessing, he wonders if possessing it would pave the way to establish the Jo clan as workshop. The uncertainty reflects a yearning for purpose tied to an unseen power. With that lingering doubt, an admonition rings out, insisting honesty about the blessing, questioning how spirit energy would function otherwise. The challenge forces a confrontation with concealed truths. Meanwhile, a reference is made to the aftermath of a death linked to the transmigrated past within Jo Hwi's narrative, though specifics remain shrouded. The haunting echo of that demise lingers like a ghost hovering over his fate. Still carrying the weight of that past, a tentative confession asks whether it would be acceptable to reveal that reincarnation occurred because of the Crimson Jade. The potential disclosure hangs precariously, threatening to unravel the delicate balance. Before that confession could settle, an earnest admission emerges, describing a strange event, uncertainty if the Yuichin Crimson Jade caused it, deeming it a lifelong secret and expressing deep fear. The raw confession lays bare a soul trembling before an unknown destiny. Yet beneath the cascade of fears, a final definition surfaces, branding a profiteer as one who cares solely for personal gain at others' expense, warning against slipping into such immorality. The stark label serves as a cautionary echo, urging vigilance against selfish ruin. The youth lingered at the threshold, his eyes void of any amusement. He moved forward with a purpose that bore none of the levity of a carefree child. Still carrying the weight of the youth is grim resolve, the elder promised to petition his father for a genuine blade. The promise hung in the air like a whispered oath. Before he could steady himself, the father's steadfast refusal echoed. No promise of 10 authentic swords could bend his resolve. The denial settled like cold steel upon their plans. Yet beneath that calm, his lips remained sealed, his silence as tight as an attache's seal. The unspoken tension grew louder with each passing breath. Meanwhile, preparations quickened as the group marked the days until departure, ensuring every detail was in place. The looming journey cast a focused urgency over the camp. With that readiness looming, whispered words turned to weapons, a grim vow to eradicate the bastards that haunted their path. Their resolve hardened like forged steel. Amid the clamor, a voice stepped forward, identifying itself as Jo Hwi, the master of the Jo clan workshop. He stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the coming conflict. Still carrying the tension of the looming clash, accusations flew, branding an unnamed figure as a great immoral scammer and shameless bastard. The charge sliced through the murmur like a blade. Amid the accusations, a practical concern emerged, questioning whether slashing prices while retaining profit would still earn the elders protection. The query hung heavy with economic and political implications. The answer lingered among the crowd, most of whom were modest workshop owners, each bearing the weight of their crafts. Their shared livelihood forged an unspoken bond. Still carrying that communal pride, they proclaimed themselves descendants of artisans, a lineage forged in fire and iron. Their heritage glimmered like ember in the night. With that heritage in mind, they elevated Anhui as craftsmen, hailed as surpassing all in pure skill. The admiration resonated like a silent anthem. Yet the conversation drifted eastward, noting Sichuan's abundant mines, a resource-rich backdrop to their ambitions. The promise of ore added a new layer to their designs. Amid talk of resources, a bitter truth surfaced: the emperor's cruelty cast a shadow over their aspirations. The oppressive ruler loomed like a dark cloud over their plans. With the emperor's oppression looming, a plea rose to summon the father, seeking his guidance in the brewing storm. The request trembled with hope and urgency. Yet he was already engrossed, overseeing elders as they transitioned into pioneering roles within the workshop. His focus remained fixed on shaping the next generation. Meanwhile, preparations tightened with a request to deliver the item they had meticulously prepared. The object glimmered with the promise of their collective effort. Still bearing the weight of coordination, they urged the father to gather the elders and deliver a comprehensive briefing. The directive pulsed like a steady drumbeat. In that moment, the plan was framed starkly, a hostile takeover looming on the horizon. The declaration cut through the murmur with surgical precision. With that vision, they unveiled a carriage powered by new technology, promising that its market debut would ignite a revolution. The innovation shimmered like a beacon of change. Now the departure loomed, every detail already set, their resolve firm as the day approached. The final preparations hummed with inevitable momentum. Reflecting on their choices, they acknowledged that hiring this individual had proved wise. The assessment glimmered with quiet satisfaction. Yet, should a decision arise before his return, they revealed a book detailing potential problems, ready to guide them. The tome stood as a safeguard against unforeseen turmoil. In that instant, they affirmed that the contents could be read precisely as intended, each word aligning with their plan. The certainty steadied the uneasy hearts. Even as strategies unfolded, a humble confession surfaced: they had fallen from a horse countless times, a reminder of their mortality. The admission softened the hardened edges of ambition. Amid the anecdotes, the book's purpose was declared: to chronicle Murim practitioners over the past millennium. Its pages promised a legacy of martial history. With reverence tinged by desperation, they invoked the heavens, pleading for divine protection over the martial arts outlier. The appeal hung in the air like a whispered prayer. Nevertheless, their affection persisted, holding fast to the belief that Jo Hwi remained their little brother. The bond glowed with familial warmth. Recalling the chaos, they likened the workshop as slashing by Yal to a monster from another realm tearing through their world. The comparison painted a vivid picture of destruction. In the aftermath, they marveled at a voice unheard of. None could speak so eloquently, yet competence alone did not soften the gravity of their lives. The observation lingered like an echo of unsolved tension. Finally, a memory was summoned. Did you recall the Gawong Chai incident, when bandits raided stores in a famine's grip? The question resurfaced, pulling the past into the present. The weight of heritage pressed upon them as the ancestors' sole offering, a solitary jewel, glimmered against the harsh scrutiny of generations. Their legacy was a gauntlet of relentless criticism, each rebuke echoing like a cold blade. The lone gem became both a beacon and a burden. Still carrying that oppressive legacy, they counted 8 souls gathered in the dim courtyard. Each figure seemed to bear its own hidden scar, a silent testament to the unforgiving expectations that surrounded the jewel. The number felt like a pact forged in shadow. Before he could steady himself, a voice cut through the murmurs, probing the essence of the assembled. It suggested that listening repeatedly would strip away the unfamiliar, allowing the vibrations of truth to settle like dust. The inquiry lingered, urging each to confront what lay within. With that contemplation lingering, a lone figure was praised for eloquence and an ironclad memory, achievements that earned passage through the rigorous official bar. The accolades painted a stark contrast to the surrounding uncertainty, highlighting the fragile line between honor and expectation. Yet the praise felt like a distant echo in the gathering. Yet beneath that calm, tales of Chao Mengdiok resurfaced, warlord and poet whose verses once commanded armies, and the revelation that the Jo clan traced its roots to the formidable Cao Cao. The duality of bloodshed and poetry wove through the air, reminding all of the empire is tangled lineage. Their histories entwined like verses on a battlefield. Meanwhile, a dark question emerged, pondering whether these souls could be reduced to slaves or shackled through intoxication. The notion of brainwashing with alcohol hinted at a cruelty masked as control. The murmur of such schemes stained the night with unease. With that malevolence hovering, a lone hand rose and struck down the bishops, their blood spilling without need of weapon. The act, brutal and swift, reverberated through the gathered, underscoring the raw power of unbridled might. It left a stark imprint on the memory of witnesses. Yet beneath the horror, legends whispered of a martial artist whose name was lost to time, his feats surviving only in myth and a solitary nickname. The anonymity amplified his legend, each untold story adding weight to his unseen presence. His shadow loomed larger than any spoken name. Before the myths could settle, a question arose about the fragility of inherited wealth, asking if its failure after 3 generations would topple an imperial line. The query pierced the conversation like a cold wind, suggesting that even the mightiest houses could crumble. The prospect hung heavily over the assembly. With that looming doubt, a calculation emerged, 100,000 equating to roughly 375 tons, an enormity that dwarfed ordinary concerns. The sheer scale of that weight served as a metaphor for the burdens borne by the empire. It amplified the sense that some loads were impossible to lift. Meanwhile, a subtle tremor rippled through the crowd as the word "Sama" lingered on tongues, evoking an intense, almost visceral feeling. The sound seemed to awaken something dormant, stirring emotions as if a hidden chord had been struck. The atmosphere thrummed with unspoken resonance. Before that lingering resonance could fade, whispers spoke of the sword god as journal, a tome whose discovery would unleash a cataclysmic shift. The anticipation of such a find pulsed like a heartbeat, promising upheaval beyond imagination. Its mere mention set the stage for Destiny's turn. With that looming transformation, a pact was forged, the parties sealing a deal that bound their fates together. The agreement, quiet yet firm, carried the weight of future battles and shared ambitions. It marked a turning point in the unfolding saga. Yet beneath that agreement, the town itself breathed like a colossal creature, its streets alive with the rhythm of countless lives. Its bustling energy wrapped around the newcomers, offering both shelter and subtle menace. The living metropolis seemed to watch and wait. Meanwhile, travelers from the distant Bangtae prefecture arrived, their steps weary from the long trek across unforgiving lands. Their arrival added fresh eyes to the town's pulse, each carrying stories of hardship. The road behind them faded as they stepped into the throbbing heart of the city. Before the newcomers could settle, legends of a South Jade heavenly blood sword warrior surfaced, a figure cloaked in both reverence and mystery. The warrior's name sang through the alleys like a prayer, promising protection and unrivaled strength. The mention ignited a flicker of hope among the weary. Yet even that hope found a focal point in the Namgong clan head, the heavenly sword warrior hailed as the people's idol. His presence radiated a quiet authority that steadied trembling hearts. The crowd's admiration swelled, binding them to a shared reverence. Meanwhile, doubts crept in regarding the heavenly thunder swordsman's record, questioning whether the martial arts journal truly chronicled his defeat of the South Jade heavenly blood demon warrior. The uncertainty cast a shadow over the celebrated tale, suggesting that even legends could be contested. The murmurs of skepticism lingered like a faint echo. With those doubts hanging, a blunt question sliced through the discourse, labeling the disputed figures as mere punks. The harsh terminology cut to the core of respect, challenging the very foundation of their reputation. The accusation sparked an uneasy tension among the listeners. Yet beneath that rising friction, another query rose, demanding to know the nature of the nonsense that permeated the gathering. The probing question forced each participant to confront the absurdity that had woven itself into their dialogue. The air grew thick with introspection as the chapter edged toward its climax. The great heavenly swordsman returns after a year, his palms stained with blood-red marks that draw uneasy murmurs from the crowd. A lingering question spreads like a cold wind: could those scars be the signature of the blood heaven absorption technique? Still bearing those crimson questions, witnesses confirmed that the heavenly absorption technique was the very force that pulled him from death's brink and carried him back alive. The fact stands unshaken amid the speculation, a solid pillar in a sea of doubt. With the technique as reality affirmed, a newfound respect shines through his hardened demeanor toward scholar Jagal Yuan. The swordsman's acknowledgement hints at a deeper bond forged in shared trials, a subtle homage hidden beneath his warrior's pride. His respect blossoms into an invitation, as Sir Yuan summons the great heavenly swordsman to the Jagal estate to verify the lingering doubts. The gathering draws the Namgong family into the halls, their presence a silent weight pressing upon the unfolding truth. Even as the estate fills with wary eyes, Sir Yulwin admits his uncertainty, whether the swordsman truly vanquished the southern jade blood demon or merely collapsed from the blood heaven absorption technique before regrouping at the Namgong estate. The ambiguity hangs heavy, a veil over the warrior is latest legend. The veil of uncertainty sharpens, as speculation turns to the flash of lightning that sliced the southern demon is crowned. Was the bolt a decisive strike against a living terror, or a final mercy upon a corpse already fallen? Amidst the swirling doubts, a stern reminder cuts through the murmurs, even a civilian must bear the weight of his own words as a man. The admonition settles like a cold hand on the gathering, demanding accountability. After the stern rebuke, the scene shifts to a bustling market where fortune smiles upon a wandering soul. An unnamed benefactor, seeing the chance, extends a modest sum and urges the stranger to return home. The crowd is clamor muffling the gravity of the offer. From the market is chaos, a new request surfaces, a hunger for the hidden veins of power within the Namgong clan. The seeker demands insight into each figure is ambition, desire, and the corruption that festers beneath their polished veneer. With that yearning for secrets, whispers point toward the elusive night butterfly of the lunar forest, a network said to eclipse even the beggar sect is grasped. Their intelligence, like moonlight over water, promises the coveted truths the seeker craves. Yet the promises of the lunar forest remain out of reach for a humble third son of a modest merchant house, regardless of his burgeoning power. His lineage bars him from the lofty circles where such knowledge circulates, a stark reminder of social walls. Bound by those walls, rumors swirl like restless wind about legendary intelligence cabals, their existence a tapestry of half-heard stories. Doubt lingers, leaving the seeker to wonder if the shadows he chases are real or merely myth. Amidst the fog of uncertainty, a harsh statistic emerges: 70 to 80% of aspirants depart empty-handed, never laying eyes on inner court master Namgong Bek. The statistic stains hope with a bitter hue, underscoring the gate is impenetrability. The gate is barriers manifest in tokens, each gleaming proof of one is rank, golden insignia for government and military elites, and a singular token reserved for the heir of a renowned family. These metallic signs dictate who may even step within the inner chambers. Beyond the golden ranks, bronze tokens pulse in the hands of those tied to the Namgong lineage, tasked with ferrying weapons, garments, and rare ingredients. Their modest metal marks a modest yet essential role in the clan is sprawling web. Amid the token hierarchy, the Fire Dragon Merchant Association bears blue seals, a sign of its own delicate privilege. The narrator is father once lingered for over a month, clutching his blue token, yearning for an audience with the inner court master. After recounting his father his patience, gratitude surfaces as he thanks the unseen listener for the counsel offered. The appreciation hangs briefly, a warm ember in an otherwise cold pursuit. With thanks expressed, his resolve hardens, he declares his departure, setting his sights on the Namgong estate. The looming journey beckons, each step a stride toward the elusive master. As he departs, a sincere wish of luck follows him, a fleeting blessing before the road is trials. The sentiment lingers like a silent prayer carried on the wind. With luck bestowed, he assures his return after completing his morning training, the discipline of sword and breath shaping his preparation. The promise of a swift comeback steadies those awaiting his arrival. Upon his promised return, his gaze turns to a young child, probing gently about the timing of their pilgrimage to the Sword Tomb. The question hangs, mixing innocence with the weight of looming destiny. The child's future remains distant. He explains that the trek spans 4 to 5 months, a stretch too great amid his mounting responsibilities. The pragmatic denial underscores the ever-growing list of duties that chain his steps. Given the journey's length, he acknowledges the necessity of crossing at least 2 provinces to reach the tomb's hidden entrance. The map of travel expands, each province a barrier to the dream. Traveling across provinces, his estimate swells to 5 months, with threats of bandits or a crippled horse threatening to stretch the odyssey even further. The looming uncertainties cast shadows over his already arduous plan. Despite the looming threats, his determination sharpens, he vows to reach the sword tomb at the earliest chance. The resolve flickers like steel, refusing to be dulled by delay. Having pledged his haste, a fleeting doubt surfaces: could the trek be compressed into a mere 1 or 2 months? The hopeful speculation battles the earlier grim calculations, a tug of desire against reality. While plans unfold, his inner cultivation awakens, channeling innate core energy to loosen muscles and pry open meridians. The subtle shift awakens potential, a quiet storm brewing within his flesh. As his energy aligns, a stark question surfaces, probing the gravity of surrendering a decade of one's life. The contemplation pierces the sanctuary of training, weighing sacrifice against the promise of power. An unnamed voice lingered in the hall, questioning whether the loss of 10 years of a life was truly a grave burden. The query hung like a cold wind over the gathered warriors, prompting the group to contemplate the weight of stolen time. Still carrying the weight of that contemplation, a sharp critic dismissed the other's resolve as feeble, demanding why they should scream when the pain cut so deep. The accusation sliced through the silence, laying bare the fragile pride of those present. Before he could steady himself, another figure revealed that the surge of soul energy coursing through him granted a fleeting voice, allowing him to speak at last. The brief respite of speech felt like a torch in the surrounding darkness. With that revelation lingering, the once dull eyes that had stared listlessly at ancient tomes suddenly sharpened, now perceiving details that had been concealed. The clarity of vision seemed to cut through the veil of complacency that had settled over the room. Yet beneath that newfound sight, an astonished onlooker gasped, unable to fathom the clarity now before them. The disbelief echoed, reminder that even the sharpest eyes could be blinded by doubt. Meanwhile, another voice whispered that such perception could not belong to any ordinary mortal, hinting at a power beyond human limits. The suggestion draped the gathering in a hushed awe. Still processing the uncanny vision, the individual admitted uncertainty regarding his own cultivation level, yet affirmed that whatever it might be would prove invaluable in everyday trials. The promise of utility steadied his resolve. Before the conversation could drift further, a staunch declaration rose, proclaiming the primacy of the Namgung lineage above all else. The words resonated like a banner unfurling over the assembly. With the family as honor invoked, a clerk stepped forward, requesting that each participant record their status and name upon the guest hall as ledger. The act of inscription seemed to seal their roles in the unfolding drama. Still awaiting the ink to dry, an urgent summons cut through the hall, demanding Warrior Cho explain his actions and hurry to join the others. The haste in his step mirrored the rising tension among the ranks. As Warrior Cho prepared to depart, a weary sigh escaped from an elder, lamenting that countless predecessors had turned this very day into a futile expedition. The lament added a layer of melancholy to their hurried march. Yet beneath that sigh, another voice rose in quiet desperation, questioning whether there remained any recourse left for them. The query hung heavy, seeking a sliver of hope. Before the doubt could settle, a calm reply offered a strange comfort, suggesting that the uncertainty was barely a yesterday's echo. The notion gave the group a fleeting sense of temporal distance. Meanwhile, a respectful bow was offered to the vice court master, inquiring whether his search had been aimed at the speaker. The courteous exchange underscored the hierarchy at play. Immediately following the greeting, a decisive command rang out, ordering the presentation of golden tokens to the 2 designated individuals. The gleam of the metal seemed to symbolize an official seal of favor. Yet a meticulous official challenged the decree, citing regulations that entitled the recipients to blue tokens and questioning why they had been dispatched to the Heavenly Elders' Court rather than the guest hall, a venue reserved for retired Namgung elders. The objection added a bureaucratic tension to the ceremony. Still echoing the dispute, a solemn recount unfolded, recalling how, amidst a duel among the family as youth, these 2 stood alone to safeguard the Namgung name. Their solitary stand impressed upon all the gravity of loyalty. With that heroic precedent affirmed, a unanimous resolve emerged: they would follow the command without hesitation. Their unwavering commitment bound them to the forthcoming path. As the council prepared to move, an attendant offered additional tea, a gesture of hospitality, which was politely declined by a weary participant. The refusal signaled a focus sharpened beyond simple comforts. Meanwhile, curiosity turned toward the hall's decorations, prompting an inquiry about whether the murals originated from the ancient Insu era. The question hinted at a deeper reverence for historic art. The response clarified that the Insu period coincided with the Bronze Age, probing further to confirm if the works indeed dated from that epoch. The scholarly tone underscored the importance of lineage in their surroundings. Before the discussion could drift, a stern rebuke cut through, accusing the skeptic of misjudgment and condemning him for disparaging the discernment of a renowned Hanlon Academy scholar. The scolding sharpened the intellectual atmosphere. In the wake of the rebuke, a learned voice recounted that the ancient arts were first uncovered by the eminent Heo Jinja, who bestowed them upon the Han imperial family, specifically citing the famed peach blossom starry painting. The tale wove a thread of legacy through the gallery. Continuing the exposition, it was observed that the starry segment of the masterpiece bore no ink at all, its celestial swirls formed through an unconventional medium. The detail added an aura of mystery to the artwork. Further description revealed that the peach blossoms were rendered with rooster as blood, the stars with prawn pigments, and the trees with charcoal, each element enduring preservation through the ages. The vivid palette painted a picture of ritualistic devotion. Yet the most striking revelation declared that the peach blossom starry painting, crafted with rooster as blood and white stone ink, remained untouched by time for a millennium. Its unaltered state stood as a testament to artistic mastery. Amidst the admiration, a probing query emerged, asking whether anyone truly recognized the piece as the legendary peach painting. The question lingered, challenging perception. Meanwhile, a humbled figure confessed regret, believing they should not have spoken to their teacher in such a manner. The admission reflected inner conflict. In response, a practical voice suggested that merely proclaiming one's lineage as a descendant of infinite imagination Cho would be insufficient. The council implied deeper proof was required. Seeking clarity, an inquisitive participant asked who the figure called Infinite Imagination Cho actually was, learning that it was merely a nickname. The clarification stripped away some of the mystique. The conversation deepened, revealing that Infinite Imagination Cho was a revered scholar, and that the speaker traced his ancestry to Cho Yu, a Hanlon Academy luminary from 3 decades prior, a lineage hailed as a boon for the Central Plains. The heritage weighed heavily upon his shoulders. Meanwhile, a brotherly voice interjected, questioning the cause of the turmoil while gesturing toward a shared cup of wine. The casual concern contrasted sharply with the gravity of the earlier discourse. With the wine raised, a formal introduction followed, announcing the name Cho Hwi to the assembly. The name echoed, linking him to the storied lineage discussed. Yet doubts resurfaced as an observer challenged the legitimacy of claiming the descendant of infinite imagination, demanding clarification on the identity in question. The interrogation added another layer of scrutiny. The skeptic pressed further, asking why the supposed heir did not embody the expected qualities, and demanding an explanation. The probing intensified the atmosphere. Meanwhile, another voice quietly asked if the previous realization had also struck the other participants. The shared insight hinted at collective awakening. Observations followed, noting the absence of any indication that he had mastered swordsmanship, fist, or kick techniques. The lack suggested a different path of cultivation. A curious query then emerged, inquiring how he managed to cleanse his body and unlock every meridian. The question underscored the mystery of his internal breakthrough. In response, a detailed explanation described the process of bodily reformation and age regression achieved by transcending human limits, purifying the vessel and opening all meridians to ascend to the supreme peak level. The description painted a picture of near-divine transformation. Building on that, it was suggested that possessing a complete energy core, with only enlightenment missing, would allow him to attain the lofty level of absolution. The prospect dangled just beyond his grasp. The discourse clarified that the absolution rank represented the pinnacle of power, second only to the unrivaled 7 martial thrones. The hierarchy emphasized the enormity of the goal. Yet it was noted that achieving enlightenment might be straightforward, though his youthful state remained a concern, perhaps hindering swift progress. The reflection balanced potential with limitation. Amid the lofty aspirations, a desperate plea rose, begging to be released as the stifling pressure made breathing impossible. The cry exposed the physical toll of their metaphysical pursuits. Finally, a proposal surfaced, questioning the alteration of the family name while extending an offer to adopt the individual as a direct descendant and son of the house. The gesture promised a new lineage and renewed purpose. An eager participant steps forward, urging the gathering to breathe deeply before the trial begins. The command hangs in the stale air, a quiet invitation to seize the first move. Still feeling the weight of that breath, another voice rises, offering to take the seeker under its wing as a direct descendant. The promise carries a strange mix of protection and expectation. Before the pledge could settle, a confident figure declares ambitions of becoming Wamgung, insisting that no obstacle will stand in the way. The certainty reverberates, sharpening the resolve of those present. Yet beneath that confidence, a darker warning slips out, a threat to seize another's body and bend it to will. The menace casts a cold shadow over the gathering, stirring unease. In response to the looming threat, a desperate supplicant begs for a family name, swearing unwavering loyalty with trembling fervor. The plea echoes the hunger for belonging amidst the chaos. A harsh rebuke follows, as a stern elder calls him a brat and reminds him he should bear the mantle of the eldest of the Cho family. The rebuke slices through the earlier desperation, reinforcing familial expectations. While the family tensions flare, a scholar brings up the legendary Great Heavenly Origin divine art and the exclusive Namgung secret technique. The mention of such lofty mastery raises the stakes of the discourse. The discussion turns contemplative as another wonders why anyone would impart a powerful technique while also teaching other martial arts, questioning the motives behind shared knowledge. The doubt adds a layer of intrigue to the already complex exchange. An unnamed figure then confesses that everything about him remains a mystery, insisting that the heavenly blood jade secret cannot be revealed to others. The secrecy tightens the veil surrounding the hidden powers. A voice of scorn follows, declaring that fools are incapable of understanding their descendant is true potential. The contempt emphasizes the gap between the enlightened and the ignorant. Amidst the growing tension, a cautious participant asks how to navigate the tangled situation, seeking guidance in the midst of uncertainty. The question underscores the urgency of finding a path forward. A contemplative elder replies that there were no successors, meaning one cannot belong to a group, only chance upon the learnings. The bleak truth underscores the isolation of the seeker. In the background, a whispered note reveals that the Shaolin guards secret manuals within the library pavilion, hinting at hidden reservoirs of knowledge. The revelation offers a glimmer of hope amid the scarcity of guidance. Inspired by the possibility of hidden texts, a strategist suggests a hypothetical duel to test the newfound techniques. The proposal ignites a spark of competitive fire. Building on that challenge, another proposes using words alone to simulate the duel, turning imagination into a battlefield of intellect. The mental exercise sharpens resolve without drawing swords. The dialogue then mentions the 7-star step, a precise formation used to engage in combat. The reference adds a tangible method to the strategic planning. A stoic master counters by declaring the years of internal energy to be reset to 0, stripping away any advantage of accumulated power. The reset forces participants to rely on skill alone. Undeterred, a determined combatant vows to employ the same martial arts as the opponent, mirroring every technique. The commitment mirrors a mirror-like resolve. Yet the same warrior also declares an intent to evade using the 7-star step, weaving agility into defense. The dual approach blends offense and evasion. A fierce voice then mentions unleashing a dragon technique aimed directly at the body, promising a devastating strike. The imagery paints a picture of searing power. Following that, a tactician describes evading with the 7-star step before striking from the right side, targeting critical accumulation points. The detailed maneuver underscores precision under pressure. A veteran then speaks of gathering 10 years of internal energy to fortify the 7 stars step for defense, merging longevity with technique. The promise of such power hints at an imminent clash. He adds that a soaring eagle charge will be employed to aim, combining aerial grace with lethal intent. The metaphor amplifies the ferocity of the forthcoming assault. After evading a dragon surge, the plan shifts to a rapid charge aimed at the lower body, seeking a vulnerable strike. The adjustment shows adaptability in the face of overwhelming force. When all internal energy is spent, the combatant vows to dodge once more and target the lower body again, refusing to yield. The perseverance underscores an unyielding spirit. An elder recounts how his brother, the heavenly sword immortal, fell after merely 4 rounds, a stark reminder of mortality even among legends. The loss casts a somber shadow over the discourse. Despite that tragedy, a challenger assures that the first move will still be granted, extending a courtesy amid the looming battle. The gesture balances respect with competition. He notes that even after fighting a true confrontation, victory still eluded him, highlighting the relentless difficulty of mastery. The admission deepens the narrative of defeat. Yet he praises the final path of the immortal move as incredible, a technique that shines despite previous failures. The admiration adds reverence to the lost art. A bold voice then asks for one more match, yearning to test limits once more. The request reflects a burning desire to overcome previous setbacks. The opponent repeats that the first move will be offered, maintaining fairness even as fatigue sets in. The consistency steadies the tension. Soon after, it is noted that he suffered defeat in 5 rounds, extending the pattern of narrow losses. The chronology of failure builds a tragic rhythm. Observing the opponent as pattern, a strategist concludes the adversary lacks familiarity with sword technique and should concede. The suggestion pushes toward surrender. Nevertheless, a new schedule is set for a hypothetical duel in 15 days, granting time for preparation. The timeline promises a renewed confrontation. Finally, a reflective mind wonders how his reaction would change if he knew his opponent truly possessed the power of a sword god. The contemplation leaves the audience pondering the magnitude of destiny. His thoughts drift to the unimaginable. How would he react if his opponent were the very incarnation of the sword god? The notion tightens a knot of dread within his chest, hinting at battles beyond mortal comprehension. Still grappling with that dread, he steadies his resolve, promising that the full story will be revealed later. The weight of his unspoken truth lingers like a cloud awaiting sunrise. Meanwhile, the world around him continues its tangled affairs. Hwa and Yeonseal have already bound their destinies in marriage. Their union adds a quiet echo to the storm brewing within his mind. Still processing the intimate alliances, his curiosity turns to legend as he asks whether they have ever heard of Namgong Soso, the flower famed for its unrivaled beauty. The question hangs like a fragrant blossom in the air. The discussion drifts into music theory. He notes that all the notes form pentatonic scales, questioning whether such harmony can succeed. The uncertainty reverberates through the silent room. Building on that tonal foundation, he points out that the modern world recognizes the simple triad of do, mi, and sol. Their clarity offers a brief respite from the complexity of the scales. That reminder stirs a distant memory of his university days, when he strummed guitar beneath campus lights. The nostalgic chords pulse faintly beneath his present concerns. With nostalgic riffs still humming, he turns to his companion, probing how such technique was accomplished. The question hangs, seeking the hidden mechanics of the sound. Acknowledging the intrusion, he offers his apologies, the words weighing heavy in the charged atmosphere. The silence that follows feels like a thin veil over unspoken tension. Undeterred, he explains his method, employing an octachord to weave 3 overlapping tones, a feat usually reserved for ensembles of multiple instruments. The description paints a picture of intricate resonance. Eager to master the craft, he requests instruction, pleading to be taught the subtleties of that layered sound. The plea carries the urgency of a musician yearning for mastery. He emphasizes that mastery of the pitch bridge is essential, suggesting they aim for intervals between mi and sol, and likewise between la and do. The guidance outlines a precise path through the scale. Prompted by that guidance, he asks to attempt a note hovering near Fa, positioned between the earlier mi. The request trembles with anticipation of an untested tone. The conversation reveals that the scales in question are ancient, yet for clarity they will be rendered into modern notation. This translation bridges centuries of musical tradition. He identifies the elusive pitch as do hashtag, a sharp that pierces the familiar melody. The pinpointed note glints like a hidden gem within the progression. Reflecting on familial pride, he remarks that the outstanding young men of their lineage could bring her immeasurable joy. Their potential shines as a beacon of hope. Motivated by that thought, he declares his desire to give it a try. The resolve in his voice steadies the fluttering anticipation. Having absorbed those resonances, he wonders how he will perceive the music of other performers moving forward. The question lingers like an unfinished chord. Seeking perspective, he asks for an opinion on So-So, the famed beauty. The inquiry hangs, awaiting judgment. The question leaves him uncertain, pondering what words would be appropriate. His thoughts swirl in a vortex of indecision. In his mind is I, she appears as beautiful as the legends described, a vision that steadies his heart. The image glows like a distant sunrise. Shifting focus to martial prowess, he declares his exclusive path, the great heavenly sword cultivation. The proclamation rings with singular authority. With his meridians now unblocked, internal energy surges, promising a complete core within 3 years. The newfound flow crackles like thunder beneath his skin. He asserts that no divine art can rival the supremacy of his great heavenly sword technique. The confidence swells like an unbreakable shield. He lists the lofty Mahabrahma, Taiji, and the so-called God as ultimate arts, placing them beneath his method. Their names tumble like distant echoes against his certainty. He curtly refuses discussion of any lowly faction martial arts, claiming ignorance of the dawn divine art and no personal experience with it. The rebuff cuts cleanly through idle chatter. Energy has been thrust into his system. He anticipates the looming side effects and dismisses any gratitude. The warning hangs like a storm on the horizon. He concludes that the only cure lies within the sword tomb, noting that without its trials he remains a child wielding adult strength. The revelation fuels a desperate urgency. He vows to head to the sword tomb without delay once his current affairs are settled. The promise sharpens his purpose like a drawn blade. A harsh laugh erupts as he derides the futile combination, questioning why his opponent remains stuck at such a low level. The scorn cuts deeper than any blade. He declares his victory inevitable, a natural outcome of his superiority. The certainty settles over the battlefield like twilight. Observing the opponent, he notes that the brash youth employed the heaven ascension strike, echoing his family is celestial lunar technique with its erratic, unpredictable flow. The comparison sharpens the contrast between mastery and recklessness. Curiosity sharpens, and he inquires who has become obsessed with the three-element sword technique. The question hangs, awaiting confession. An unnamed challenger had already taken 13 straight victories over him, each win a reminder of the gap he could not close. The weight of those defeats settled like a storm cloud over his thoughts. Meanwhile, a youth barely 20 observed the relentless streak, his eyes reflecting both awe and dread. The murmurs of the crowd swirled around him, planting a seed of resolve amidst the looming shadows. With that realization lingering, an observant scholar asked silently whether any error had been committed in the face of such defeat. His query hung in the air, a thin thread seeking truth beneath the clamor. Before he could steady himself, a seasoned strategist remarked that despite countless preparations, they had merely lingered in waiting. The admission carried the weight of missed opportunities, echoing through the silent hall. Still carrying the weight of the previous hesitation, an eager apprentice sought approval to move forward and was met with a quiet confirmation. The subtle assent acted as a fragile bridge toward action. Yet beneath that calm, a coveted prize surfaced, with the ancient immortal declaring his intent to claim it first. The hierarchy of desire sharpened the tension among the gathered. Meanwhile, a bold challenger raised the notion of a wager, asking whether the other would dare to make a bet. The suggestion crackled with competitive fire, stirring the air. Before the stakes could settle, a curious onlooker pressed for the opponent his true desire, demanding clarity amidst the growing tension. The question cut through the murmurs, demanding honest confession. With that revelation lingering, the challenger declared a wish to open inns in the red districts, a venture that blended commerce with conquest. The unusual goal added a layer of intrigue to the already fraught encounter. Still carrying the weight of the commercial ambition, a shrewd negotiator put forward a proposal to exchange family names in exchange for a binding deal. The suggestion blended honor with strategy, testing loyalties. Before the accord could be sealed, an indignant elder rebuked the audacity of altering the family name, invoking the higher sky as a witness to their transgression. His accusation echoed like a thunderclap, threatening to unravel the fragile agreement. Yet beneath that calm, the duel was presented as a guided encounter meant for training, a controlled clash to sharpen skill. The premise softened the edge of violence, though tension still coursed through the participants. With that resolve shimmering, a swift combatant proclaimed he would dodge the strike and invoke the heavens for power. The promise of celestial aid lent a fierce sparkle to his eyes. Before the first could act, another combatant pledged to unleash the second heavenly path, a barrier designed to cut off the opponent's retreat. The maneuver promised a strategic chokehold, tightening the battlefield. Still carrying the momentum of the previous block, his counter struck with precise timing, halting the attempted evasion in its tracks. The interception sent a jolt of frustration through the attacker. Yet beneath that frustration, the determined warrior vowed to accelerate, channeling raw velocity into a blistering speed attack. The promise of rapid assault widened the gap between hesitation and action. With that flurry of movement, he closed the gap, executing relentless footwork that hammered the opponent's rear before soaring into an eagle-like surge. The sequence fused precision and ferocity, leaving a stunned silence in its wake. After the fierce climax, a silent observer wondered if enlightenment had finally touched the weary fighter. The question lingered like a faint glow among the dimming arena. Still carrying that contemplative doubt, the veteran urged him to protect the sword and stand guard, emphasizing the weapon is sacred duty. The council added a mantle of responsibility to his newly sharpened senses. With that recognition echoing, an elder praised him for achieving great enlightenment and unlocking the boundless heavenly sword technique. The accolade resonated like a distant bell, affirming his arduous path. Meanwhile, he reminded the group to summon the other master and to keep the heavenly sword plaque within sight. The gentle reminder stitched together duty and reverence. Still carrying the weight of tradition, a voice proclaimed that any deed performed under the family's banner was permissible, a fact known to the master. The assertion underscored the authority wielded by lineage. Before this could be dismissed, an advisor cautioned against claiming that martial arts could not be cultivated within the inner court as tables. The warning highlighted the hidden currents of knowledge flowing even in formal settings. Yet beneath that calm, a hopeful candidate asked if his fervent brother could be welcomed as a warrior of the family. His plea carried the fire of resolve, seeking acknowledgement of raw dedication. Meanwhile, the captain of the Azure Dragon squad stood poised, his eyes fixed on the horizon as he awaited instructions. The waiting tension mirrored the chapters of strategy yet to unfold. Before the next mission began, a solemn voice warned that their paths might not converge for many years. The prospect of prolonged separation cast a shadow over their camaraderie. Yet beneath that calm, a curious scholar appealed to the AI Siri, inviting a hypothetical duel as a means to learn. The unconventional request blended tradition with modern ingenuity. With that financial pressure looming, Magistrate Bang ordered a slow, measured repayment of the debt. The decree added a weighty ledger to their already tangled affairs. Meanwhile, the plan to forge weapons under the banner of Weapon Mountain Pavilion was set into motion, with manpower allocated to the forges. The initiative signaled a shift toward industrial strength. Before finalizing the arsenal, they mulled the generous notion of sending a weapon to the military at no cost. The prospect hinted at strategic goodwill and potential leverage. With that ambition burning, they insisted on forging a weapon worthy of the smithy master's admiration, demanding an independent merchant guild devoted exclusively to their products. The resolve forged a path toward unrivaled prestige. An initial question rises concerning how the association should be referenced. The inquiry hangs in the air like a tentative breath before any decisions are made. Still carrying the weight of that inquiry, an unnamed figure asserts that there is no reason to pursue further discussion. The dismissal feels cold, cutting through the lingering doubts. Meanwhile, the ledgers reveal a modest triumph. The Fire Merchant Association turned a 60-tael seed into roughly 1,000 golden taels over 8 months. The numbers whisper of hidden diligence beneath the earlier skepticism. Building upon that financial note, Sir JHNGJAE's contribution is noted as already fulfilled. His completed part stands as a quiet pillar amid the unfolding calculations. Yet, a disadvantageous contract is abandoned now that Tron ores have become readily available. The shift underscores a strategic retreat, leaving the previous profit pursuit behind. With the trade winds changing, it is reminded that you also bear the mantle of the Merchant Association as owner. The dual responsibility settles like an extra weight on your shoulders. The figure of 1,000 golden taels resurfaces, echoing the earlier profit report. Its recurrence reinforces the scale of the venture is success. Beyond gold, the projected gain from iron ores is calculated at 300 taels. This modest promise adds another layer to the growing portfolio of returns. Further still, the completed product development at the machine manufacturing pavilion is expected to yield about 700 taels in profit. The forecast paints a mosaic of revenue streams aligning with the earlier iron ore estimate. Notably, the pavilion itself has transitioned from a weapon mountain to a dedicated weapon manufacturing hub. This structural shift hints at a broader strategic realignment within the enterprise. However, the pursuit of higher quality weapons demands at least half a year of refinement, prompting their exclusion from immediate sales. The patience required tempers the earlier eagerness for quick profit. Amid these logistical musings, a new question emerges regarding the Great General Division. The inquiry adds a military dimension to the otherwise commercial tableau. Unsurprised, the speaker notes that the matter concerns only a year's span, shrinking its perceived urgency. This assessment offers a calm perspective amid mounting strategic concerns. Consequently, a declaration is made to embark on a fresh enterprise. The resolve to start a new business injects a forward-looking energy into the discussion. Simultaneously, a map of Hufei and a modest horse carriage are likened to a human carriage, symbolizing movement and trade routes. The visual anchors the new venture within tangible geography. Following that, the machine manufacturing pavilion is officially reported as completed. Its readiness marks a turning point, aligning with the earlier profit forecasts. Questions then arise about the necessary inventory levels and the timing of the first sales. The logistical concerns ripple from the pavilion is completion, seeking to translate capacity into commerce. Amid these plans, a stern directive is issued to keep the in-business unaware of the mentioned developments. The secrecy adds a covert undertone to the otherwise open calculations. Consequently, an in-delivery service is described, channeling food through a hidden alley from the business. The clandestine route mirrors the earlier instruction to stay silent. It is noted that the inn provides both lunch and dinner within those locations, catering to a steady stream of patrons. The service promises consistent demand for the forthcoming deliveries. Staff are tasked with recording each order's address and time on a status board upon receipt. This systematic logging builds the infrastructure needed for the covert supply chain. Delivery personnel then consult the status board, return to the inn, and fulfill each destination with the prepared meals. Their disciplined routine breathes life into the previously outlined logistics. A revolutionary invention is proposed to streamline the delivery process further. The suggestion aims to elevate the modest operation into something transformative. The overarching goal crystallizes: to prepare food so compelling that patrons will seek it despite its steep cost. This ambition drives the innovation behind the proposed invention. It is lamented that the current fare feels tasteless, a shortcoming that threatens the lofty objective. The criticism fuels the urgency for culinary improvement. The blandness is attributed to the scarcity of salt and sugar, ingredients rendered expensive within Chinese cuisine. The economic constraint underscores the challenge of flavor amid fiscal pressure. Accordingly, a request is made to secure large quantities of salt and sugar from Jiangnan, aiming to overcome the taste deficit. The procurement plan seeks to turn scarcity into abundance. In a separate sphere, the Cho family smithy receives a heavenly sword plaque, an honor bestowed upon only a handful each year. The accolade shines as a symbol of exceptional craftsmanship. During a work trip to Hunan, the Heavenly Elders Court Master presents this prestigious award to the smithy. The ceremonial bestowal links the family's legacy to celestial recognition. Yet, voices emerge declaring that such pressures cannot be endured forever. The statement reflects the mounting weight of expectations upon the honored smithy. A query follows, probing why the training ground stands empty of practitioners. The emptiness hints at deeper disruptions within the martial community. Further, there is concern over the whereabouts of the Azure Dragon Squad and the Heavenly Dragon Squad. Their absence deepens the mystery surrounding the silent training fields. An additional question seeks clarification on the nature of these squads themselves. The inquiry attempts to define their roles amid the growing uncertainty. The discussion turns to theoretical and hypothetical duels, exploring possibilities beyond current reality. These mental sparrings offer a glimpse into strategic foresight. Permission for such explorations is granted by the captains, sanctioning the speculative exercises. Their approval legitimizes the abstract training within the broader martial framework. Through these imagined confrontations, enlightenment is achieved, culminating in the acquisition of the Heavenly Eye, a rarity within the family lineage. The breakthrough marks a profound personal ascension. It is explained that this leap was prompted by a martial master whose skill matched the patriarch's own level. The encounter with an equal forced the pursuit of higher understanding. The patriarch's adversary is identified as an external disciple master, a challenger from beyond the clan's walls. This revelation situates the conflict within a wider network of martial rivalry. The council turned its acute gaze toward the enigmatic figure known only as Wi, determined to uncover every fragment of his past. Their inquiries pierced the silence of the hall, demanding answers from the shadows. Still bearing the intensity of that scrutiny, whispers spread that the patriarch, preoccupied with his duties, had finally turned his attention toward them. The atmosphere tightened as the elders sensed the shift of focus. Meanwhile, the realization settled that the Namgung family patriarch wielded the legacy of a heavenly sword, a warrior whose very presence commanded reverence. His aura cast a luminous veil over the gathering, dimming doubts. With that awe lingering, an observer muttered that the sight was nothing short of amazing, a sentiment that resonated through the assembly. The murmurs grew into a collective breath of admiration. Yet beneath that admiration, they proclaimed the hypothetical duel technique as the most flawless they had ever witnessed, a mastery that eclipsed even their own. The revelation hung heavy, a standard beyond reach. Still probing the mystery, they questioned if he hailed from the Manhwa sect, a violet dawn sword saint of unrivaled strength, only to dismiss the possibility. The search for his origin deepened the intrigue. With that doubt lingering, they promised to reveal the truth gradually, hoping the seeker might glean some insight along the way. Their patience became a thin thread stretched across uncertainty. Meanwhile, a bitter verdict slipped from their tongues, branding him a good-for-nothing of the Hwa family. The accusation echoed, tarnishing his reputation in the council's ear. Still echoing the disdain, they observed that the entire Jadao family had convened within the hall, their presence a stark contrast to the accusation. Their gathering amplified the weight of judgment. Amid the gathering, a courteous query rose toward Sir Hwa, inquiring after his well-being. The moment of politeness stood fragile against the surrounding tension. While the formalities unfolded, a light-hearted remark drifted, noting that an unnamed figure seemed to have grown more attractive since their last meeting. The comment cut through the stern atmosphere like a brief sunrise. Still carrying the teasing tone, they teased Sangho, calling him as frivolous as ever. Laughter flickered, yet it could not erase the underlying strain. Yet beneath the banter, a sharper truth emerged: without familial orders, they would have no desire to engage at all. The confession revealed the thin veneer of civility. Still reeling from that resentment, they voiced disbelief at the prospect of journeying to Shangxi with companions whose mere brushwork could tarnish their father's name, promising to set out only after a meal. The notion of travel became a reluctant duty rather than an honor. With that frustration lingering, a weary sigh escaped as they asked what else could be expected. The question hung, unanswered, like smoke in the room. Meanwhile, the conversation turned toward Sir Jo Hwi, demanding why the sharing of such know-how was required. The demand sharpened the already taut exchange. Still clutching that grievance, they lamented that despite persistent pestering, the secrets of management remained hidden, threatening to derail their schemes. Their plans teetered on the brink of collapse. With that accusation hanging, they asserted knowledge of his affluent lineage, challenging him to doubt their awareness of his in-building ambitions. The challenge rode on a tide of suspicion. Amid the rising tension, a bewildered voice cut through, demanding what on earth this scene represented. The question echoed like a warning bell. Still observing the chaos, they acknowledged Manager Li's remarkable swiftness in completing tasks. His efficiency became a brief glimmer of order. While the praise lingered, they turned accusatory, questioning how long they had searched, noting the abrupt termination of the agreement, and probing the true meaning of sworn brotherhood. Their words cut deep, unraveling bonds previously taken for granted. With that resignation, they remarked that such outcomes were simply the way things unfolded. Acceptance settled over the council like a thin veil. Still unsettled, they lamented that even rival merchant guilds behaved differently, baffled by the refusal to negotiate, and reiterated their bond as sworn brothers. The contradiction gnawed at their sense of loyalty. Amid the criticism, a softer tone emerged, expressing respect and affection while urging clarity between personal and commercial ties. The plea for transparency hinted at a possible reconciliation. Yet the conversation sharpened again, telling why that it seemed they spoke as though no chances had been offered, demanding account of the reminders given. Their insistence pressed the weight of unmet expectations. With that accounting in mind, they disclosed that the monthly profit extracted from him amounted to YOL in merchant terms. The figure glinted, a stark reminder of the stakes involved. Still weighing the numbers, they noted his awareness of the earnings derived from the Anhui smithy. Knowledge of the flow of gold added another layer to the dispute. Amid the financial discourse, an exclamation rose about the heavenly sword plaque, its significance reverberating through the hall. The relic became a symbol of authority and mystery. With that revelation, they declared the agreement conclusively terminated. The finality echoed like a gavel striking stone. Still grappling with the abrupt end, they confessed a rude stance taken unknowingly toward him. Their apology trembled beneath the heavy silence. Amid the apology, a probing question emerged, demanding his identity and the reason behind possessing their family's sword plaque. The inquiry sharpened the mystery surrounding the relic. While the inquiry lingered, they responded that a brother, renowned within their house, must have bestowed the plaque, affirming its familial origin. The claim sought to legitimize the artifact's presence. With that claim, they described him as a bearer of astonishing martial prowess. The compliment hinted at a respect that still lingered beneath the dispute. Yet a contrasting observation surfaced, noting that despite his skill, his hands and eyes lacked precision. The flaw cast a shadow over his celebrated reputation. Still skeptical, they questioned whether this was a jest, insisting he could not be a true martial artist. Their doubt rang sharp, demanding proof of competence. Amid the doubt, they recalled his victories over all imagined duels against the first grandfather. The memory of conquest lingered like a lingering ember. With that history, they lamented that he had been accepted as an external disciple, ranking above them, and deserved better treatment. The injustice weighed heavily on the council's conscience. Still challenged, they demanded proof, refusing to recognize an elder without any martial knowledge unless witnessed firsthand. Their reluctance forged a wall of verification. With the tension mounting, they instructed the family to verify the facts before remaining silent. The command sought to halt speculation with concrete confirmation. Amid the hush, they expressed honor at having met the young word master in a distant land. The acknowledgement added a fleeting note of reverence to the proceedings. Yet abruptly, they commanded a halt to the proceedings. The sudden pause froze the room in a suspended breath. Still pressing forward, they reminded that Lady Namgung had already affirmed its authenticity. The reinforcement aimed to cement the plaque's legitimacy. With that authority invoked, they declared they spoke for the patriarch and demanded proof. Their claim of representation added weight to the request. Amid the scrutiny, they remarked on the subject as an interesting fellow. The brief observation hinted at a begrudging curiosity. Still acknowledging his talent, they affirmed he was a skilled swordsman whose level was difficult to attain at his age. The praise underscored the rarity of his prowess. With the assessment complete, they concluded that the prospect would feel nice. The final thought softened the atmosphere, offering a brief respite. The master's eyes lingered on the report, noting a commendation never before bestowed. Still carrying the weight of past doubts, he felt a rare surge of pride. The unexpected praise echoed louder than any clashing steel. With that fleeting glory still resonating, a stern voice reminded him to translate his thoughts into the language of his own realm. The challenge settled like a cold wind across his mind. He understood the need to bridge worlds before the next test. Before he could steady himself, an inquisitive tone cut through the silence, demanding his true desire. The lingering echo of the master's praise now felt like a mask over his ambition. He sensed the pressure to define his purpose. Yet beneath that probing question, a command urged him to convey a message without embellishment. The previous demand for clarity now intensified, stripping away any pretense. He felt the weight of unadorned truth pressing upon his tongue. Still haunted by the strict instruction to speak plainly, a seasoned instructor warned him against practicing martial techniques in darkness. The reminder of his ACU point blocking training resonated like a pulse beneath his skin. He realized the peril of obscured training could blind more than his eyes. With that caution lingering, another lesson unfolded: a swordsman's growth demanded sharpening of visual acuity beyond mere sight. The admonition to avoid over-reliance on vision echoed the earlier counsel about training in the dark. He felt a subtle urging to trust senses beyond the obvious. Before his mind could settle, a sharp rebuke challenged his confidence, questioning the depth of his knowledge. The lingering doubts from earlier critiques now surged, threatening to undermine his resolve. He sensed the looming battle between pride and humility. Yet beneath the heated exchange, a seasoned elder whispered about the rarity of finger arts within the Jianhu, noting both talent and the Namgung lineage as obstacles. The reference to the family's legacy cast a shadow over his aspirations. He felt the weight of heritage pressing on his ambitions. Still reeling from the revelation about lineage, an arrogant claim rose, boasting of his current talent. The boast clashed with the earlier caution about overconfidence, creating a tension in the air. He sensed his ego inflating like a storm on the horizon. Before the pride could fully settle, a probing question emerged, asking if he disagreed and how far his obsession with the unsheathed blade had driven his arm. The lingering memory of his earlier training doubts resurfaced, highlighting the physical toll. He felt his muscles tighten under scrutiny. Yet an odd observation slipped: his own arm's length seemed off, perhaps longer than expected. The earlier focus on his sword's grip now shifted to the very bone that wielded it. He sensed an unsettling self-examination creeping in. With that contemplation of his physique, attention turned to the faint marks etched upon his skin, the signs of a boulder's past trials. The earlier evaluation of his abilities now found a physical testament. He felt the past battles whisper through those scars. Still bearing the scars of countless fights, he was reminded that even a heavenly emperor could not escape mortal frailties. The contrast between divine title and human limitation deepened his internal conflict. He sensed the paradox tightening around his destiny. Before his doubts could settle, Lin's voice trembled, confessing his immersion into the sword god's teachings and fearing defeat. The earlier doubts about his training now swirled into anxiety about confronting a legend. He felt a cold dread of an impending challenge. Yet the weight of history pressed harder as the mention of 4 centuries reminded him of the sword god's enduring legacy. The lingering fear from Lin's confession now seemed dwarfed by the passage of time. He sensed his own insignificance in the vast timeline. While the conversation lingered on the Namgung family's foundational sword arts, he reflected on his own rudimentary grasp of the discipline. The earlier acknowledgement of his talent now seemed fragile against the backdrop of lineage mastery. He felt a resolve to close the widening gap. Before he could answer that inner query, a realization struck: when had his obsession begun, and why could he not keep pace with the master? The lingering echo of his earlier boasts now felt like a hollow echo. He sensed a growing chasm between aspiration and reality. Yet his mind raced through countless variations, tens, hundreds, of techniques spanning Mount Hwa, a youthful dragon, and the legend of Chung Wun's. The earlier self-question merged with these mythic images, inflaming his imagination. He felt a surge of purpose amidst the swirling legends. With that flood of legendary references still vivid, he recalled 3 grueling years spent at the edge of his limits, forging a body capable of confronting the foe. The sacrifice had hardened his heart, making it simultaneously tender, rough, and brutal. He sensed the price of power etched into every breath. Before the memory could settle, a formal inquiry echoed, asking if his name was Jo Hwi and noting his brother's respectful tone. The lingering recollection of his training hardships now intertwined with his identity. He felt the weight of lineage and expectation settle upon his shoulders. Yet an affirmation arrived from Namgung Jango, dismissing doubts about his blindness and declaring confidence in his abilities. The earlier questioning of his skill now found validation from a respected figure. He sensed a renewed spark of trust within his core. Before the newfound confidence could blossom, a request urged him to speak freely, hoping the young sword master would show respect to Cho. The lingering gratitude from Jango now guided his demeanor. He felt a subtle shift toward humility and poise. Yet the atmosphere softened as an invitation for tea turned into a proposal for wine, promising shared honor. The earlier tension over respect now melted into camaraderie. He sensed the evening's potential to bridge rivalry and fellowship. Before the glasses could clink, a hurried request pressed him to complete a task for Hwi within a minute. The lingering warmth of the proposed drink now mixed with urgency. He felt his focus sharpen under the pressure. Yet the request unfolded into a meticulous inventory, sharpening stones weighing 288 kilograms, jiaolong herbs at 1,536 kilograms, and rolls of pigyon silk. The prior moment of urgency now turned to precise calculation. He sensed the weight of trade and preparation looming. Before he could finish counting, the ledger revealed 82 items with a total cost of 4,873 taels, a figure that resonated with the earlier inventory. The financial precision now underscored the stakes of his dealings. He felt a blend of awe and caution at the magnitude of wealth. Yet the motive emerged: he intended to stockpile while prices remained low, seizing opportunity amidst the numbers. The earlier awareness of the total cost now aligned with a strategic mindset. He sensed a calculating mind steering his actions. Before the transaction could conclude, a sharp accusation pierced the air, branding him as secretive and greedy, questioning any future business. The lingering trust from earlier exchanges now crumbled under suspicion. He felt his resolve harden against the betrayal. Yet despite the tension, a parting phrase lingered, an invitation to meet again. The echo of accusation still hung, but the promise of return offered a sliver of reconciliation. He sensed the future thread tugging at his fate. Before the next encounter could begin, the scene shifted to a settled table, now certain and ready. The lingering promise of reunion found solid ground in this arrangement. He felt a calm anticipation for the discussions to come. Yet astonishment broke through as someone marveled at the feat, questioning how it was possible. The earlier certainty of the table now seemed a backdrop to an extraordinary demonstration. He sensed awe mingling with curiosity. Before the wonder could fade, a query returned, asking to recall the items of varying fabric weights. The previous amazement now turned to clarification. He felt the need to articulate the intricate details once more. Yet the mystery deepened when another wonder asked how the rapid mental calculation was achieved. The earlier explanation of inventory now seemed like a feat of intellect. He sensed respect blooming for his sharp mind. Before the admiration could settle, a comparison arose with the Jagal family's lifelong arithmetic mastery, pondering whether lattice multiplication, abacus, or reverse calculation was employed. The earlier swift mental tally now matched centuries of scholarly discipline. He felt a bridge forming between streetwise skill and scholarly tradition. Yet frustration flared as someone dismissed the previous speculation, declaring the method unrelated. The lingering admiration for his calculation now tangled with confusion. He sensed a clash of perspectives that threatened to erupt. Before the tension could explode, an observation arose questioning why she elevated a simple act to the level of a superpower. The prior dispute over calculation methods now shifted to perceptions of ability. He felt a subtle critique of exaggerated reverence. Yet a philosophical query emerged, probing how the concept of nothing could factor into multiplication, challenging the notion that 5 could be multiplied by 0. The earlier debates on method now entered abstract territory. He sensed the mind stretching beyond concrete numbers. Before the abstract argument could settle, another voice asked if the idea of nothing as a number had ever been considered, urging reflection on the prior statement. The lingering perplexity over multiplication grew deeper. He felt the conversation spiraling into metaphysical theory. Yet the discussion sharpened, demanding a definition of nothing as a number, probing the essence of the concept. The previous philosophical musings now demanded concrete clarification. He sensed a tightening of intellectual tension. Before resolution could be reached, a logical rebuttal asserted that numbers require existence, questioning how nothing could be quantified. The earlier quest for definition now faced firm skepticism. He felt the debate sharpening like a blade. Yet an acceptance slipped in, acknowledging the difficulty with a calm, "It is okay," signaling a tentative peace. The prior contention over nothing now softened. He sensed a quiet resignation settling over the discourse. Before the calm could fully take hold, a fresh request begged clarification on how 5 could be multiplied, reigniting curiosity. The lingering philosophical tension re-emerged. He felt the desire for a clear answer pulse anew. Yet a sharp criticism followed, denouncing the previous logic as impossible, insisting that nothing cannot be multiplied naturally. The earlier attempts to rationalize now faced outright dismissal. He sensed frustration building within the circle. Before the argument could conclude, a terse insult labeled the interlocutor a blockhead, cutting the discussion short. The earlier intellectual sparring now devolved into contempt. He felt the atmosphere grow tense and bitter. An air of contempt swirled around the Jagal family, their arrogance casting a cold shadow over the gathering. Their haughty demeanor was noted by all, a living warning of pride untempered. Still bearing the sting of the Jagal family is arrogance, whispers turned to condemnation of a sect of maniacs who revered the sword above all else. Their single-minded obsession seemed a mirror of the same hubris that had tainted the Jagals. Before the blade-obsessed could fully unveil their creed, a silent resolve hardened within a lone figure who would rather bite his tongue and die than don the mantle of a white scholar cloaked in cheap tricks. He saw the pure-hearted sword-seeker as a false beacon, a truth twisted by vanity. With that realization lingering, the definition of a white scholar unfolded, a person lost to books, untouched by the harsh grind of the real world. The notion underscored his disdain for hollow intellects. Yet beneath that contempt, he demanded that the pretenders cut their deceit seriously, his voice a blade slicing through idle chatter. The call resonated like a challenge to any who clung to illusion. Meanwhile, murmurs rose that young Master Doa could not be sidelined when the little sword master and the diminutive Jae-gal converged, their fates intertwined. The gathering is balance hinged on his presence, a subtle keystone amid swirling tensions. Still echoing the significance of Doa, a voice revealed his origins from a distant land, walking beside his father Myung. Their foreign roots added a layer of mystery to the already tangled scene. Before the revelation could settle, the newcomer introduced himself simply as Jo Hwi, a name that drummed softly against the restless crowd. His identification marked a quiet anchor amidst the swirling accusations. Yet beneath that calm introduction, his thoughts drifted to a performance by a young lady at the Double Ninth Festival of the previous year, a memory he could not shake. The lingering melody of that night colored his present resolve. With that memory still vivid, he offered a humble apology and gratitude for the guidance he had received, the gesture bearing the weight of unspoken respect. The acknowledgement seemed to ease the tension that had haunted the gathering. Meanwhile, curiosity sparked as he asked whether the other also yearned to master non-sword hypothetical duels, probing the depths of their strategic minds. The proposal hinted at a broader battlefield beyond steel. Still carrying the intrigue of imagined duels, he remarked that the melody from the festival felt out of place, a discordant note in the current turmoil. The observation lingered like a subtle chord, questioning harmony itself. Before the discord could settle, he declared himself merely a merchant running a modest smithy, grounding his presence in humble trade. This self-portrayal contrasted sharply with the grandeur of fighters around him. Yet beneath that modest claim, he turned his gaze outward, asking who in the world this mysterious figure truly was, a question that cut through the veneer of commerce. The inquiry pierced the silence, demanding identity. Still pondering the unknown identity, he described an uneducated individual who had bested Django of the Namgung family, a master of arithmetic, while also wielding music and dance. The tale painted a portrait of raw talent eclipsing scholarly prowess. Before the narrative could unfold further, he unveiled a phoenix-gilded folding fan belonging to his lineage, extending an invitation to the listener as an honored guest. The fan's flames seemed to promise prestige amidst the surrounding chaos. Yet beneath that gracious gesture, he brusquely instructed someone to put that aside and questioned the motive behind such a demand. The sudden rebuke added a sharp edge to the delicate offering. Still grappling with the abrupt command, he wondered aloud if a law existed that barred a warrior of another clan from being treated as an honored guest. The speculation hinted at hidden codes governing honor. Meanwhile, he probed the nature of such a law, noting that powerful factions were intertwining, making the desire to serve as a guest feel like a calculated ruse. The observation cast a shadow over the very concept of hospitality. With that intrigue lingering, he recalled his participation in the Little Dragon Grand Banquet at Manhwa, a gathering of legends and feasts. The memory evoked a sense of grandeur contrasting the current scheming. Still carrying the echo of the banquet, he noted the festival as triennial rhythm, a celebration where martial arts took center stage. The periodic grandeur underscored the cyclical nature of power displays. Yet beneath the clashing swords, he added that calligraphy and music also flowed between participants, an exchange of culture beyond bloodshed. This reminder softened the martial fervor with artistic grace. Meanwhile, a hesitant request slipped through as he asked if he might accompany them as an uninvited guest, seeking a place within the festivity's orbit. The plea hinted at yearning for inclusion. Before doubt could settle, he expressed delight at the prospect of traveling together, reassuring the other not to worry with a calm assurance. His optimism painted a hopeful path ahead. Still riding that hopeful momentum, he enumerated the enterprises under his watch: the Grand Hwa Bank, Sunny Escort Agency, Honorio Restaurant, Heavenly Fragrance General Store, and a chain of modest inns. The breadth of his holdings painted him as a silent architect of the realm as commerce. Yet beneath the empire of ventures, he reflected that owning a small inn felt like a genuine accomplishment, a humble anchor amidst vast enterprises. The sentiment grounded his ambitions in simple pride. Meanwhile, his concern shifted as he asked the young master whether something untoward had occurred, his tone laced with genuine curiosity. The inquiry opened a window to possible unseen turmoil. Still seeking answers, he identified the colossal tiger crew as the active force prowling the area, a beast of reputation and danger. Their presence loomed like a predator over the fragile peace. Yet beneath the looming threat, he recalled rumors that the colossal tiger crew ranked as the weakest among the 72 green bandit gangs, a paradox that intrigued him. The contradiction hinted at hidden vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, he referenced the men of the Green Forest Bandits using Murim's own terminology, weaving the lore of the underworld into his assessment. The language sharpened the image of the guerrilla forces. Still questioning the competence of his foes, he asked bluntly whether there was even a brain inside the other's head, a challenge cutting through bravado. The harsh query underscored the desperation of their standoff. Yet beneath that scorn, he observed that they had chosen to raise their own flag as well, a bold declaration of autonomy. The act signaled a fracture in the already fragile alliances. Meanwhile, confidence radiated as he noted their strength and strategy, recalling how Anhue's Ping clan had demonstrated that the Gango was far from safe. The recollection served as a warning of overreaching ambition. Still grappling with strategic missteps, he admitted a mistake had been made regarding the gender of the young Jaegao, a slip that could ripple through their plans. The admission added a personal layer to the unfolding chaos. Yet beneath that confession, he described the current landscape as a mess, scholars' dismembered corpses strewn about, while criminal gangs roamed unchecked. The grim tableau painted a world on the brink of anarchy. Meanwhile, his eyes lingered on the crimson emblem of Bandit King Cho Rungpei, a sigil indicating the king or one of his direct disciples stood among the carnage. The blood-red mark amplified the threat is immediacy. Still bearing the weight of that looming presence, he concluded that the Bandit King's direct subordinates were said to wield the strength of 70 men, a force that could tip the balance of power. The final revelation underscored the peril that now shadowed every step. The troops positioned seal stones meticulously, weaving battle arrays around the perimeter, while the guard took its post. Simultaneously, a unified energy divination spell was cast, shimmering across each warrior's back, binding them with a silent promise of protection. Realizing the looming hopelessness, the leader ordered an immediate retreat toward the camp, urging swift communication with the gate upon arrival. The burden of reporting lost lives and minimizing further sacrifices settled heavily upon his shoulders. With the retreat underway, the subtle intricacies of the spell emerged, revealing an advanced form of energy divination that few had ever mastered. A lone encampment, allied with a cadre of gifted mages, supplied its arcane expertise, turning the desperate gamble into a calculated maneuver. Even as the night deepened, every participant displayed an uncanny mastery of the divination, a skill passed down through lineages tracing back to the legendary strategist Kongming. Their collective understanding forged a silent network, each mind echoing the other's intent. Just as the spell settled, the thunder of Namgung warriors shattered the quiet, their blades striking the air with ferocious intent. Their sudden onslaught forced the camp to brace for a clash that seemed inevitable. Amid the clash, a voice cut through the din, promising to speak gently despite the chaos. The subtle tone hinted at a negotiation hidden beneath the clamor of steel. Before the words could settle, their strategy was clarified. The earlier tactic known as Cho Rungpei had been revised to the more precise Chiol Wungpei. This correction sharpened their focus, aligning the troops under a unified method. The commander leaned in, demanding clarification on the recent declaration. His inquiry lingered, seeking the exact meaning behind the abrupt proclamation. A sharp rebuke followed, questioning whether the challenge crossed a forbidden line and accusing the speaker of mistaking age for wisdom. The accusation pierced the atmosphere, implying that sight alone had become a mere decoration. He then turned his gaze to the young fighter's face, noting it appeared a year younger than expected, and wondered which lineage it resembled. The observation lingered, probing the mystery of heritage behind the youthful countenance. The tension cracked with nervous laughter, as the youth mocked the seriousness, asking whether they truly intended to test him. His jest masked a thin veil of dread, daring the others to reveal their true intentions. Beneath the laughter, frustration boiled, being treated as a man despite his teenage years weighed heavily upon him. The dissonance between appearance and expectation drilled into his thoughts like a relentless drum. An elder countered, insisting he had never washed his face nor glanced into a mirror, questioning even the habit of bathing among mountain bandits. This stark confession added an unsettling rawness to the exchange. The brash youngster, grounded in pragmatic logic, told him to abandon nonsense and state his true identity. His blunt demand sliced through the confusion, urging clarity in the midst of chaos. In a surge of exasperation, the youth shouted that the leader's indecision drove him mad, demanding why comrades remained motionless like totem poles. His outcry echoed across the battlefield, a plea for action against stagnant authority. A voice rose, identifying the man in question as Zhang Yilong, the great disciple of the famed bandit king. The recognition brought a sudden shift, casting the conflict in a new, reverent light. It was then revealed that he himself had become the great bandit king's disciple after accepting the green blood treasure, a fact that both honored and cautioned him despite his youth. The warning lingered, reminding him that power bore a heavy price. The surrounding warriors pressed the question of whether he could don the symbolic garb, awaiting his confirmation. Their nod of approval held the weight of acceptance. A lingering curiosity persisted about her taste, probing the subtleties of preference within the ranks. The question hinted at deeper cultural undercurrents among the fighters. He dismissed the bandit as ignorant, recalling their initial raids and thefts, before skeptically asking if the current discourse was a jest. The rebuke underscored a disdain for frivolity amid lingering violence. Turning practical, he queried the cost of forging a seal stone, pleading for an end to the futility, and reminded the youth of his claim to be the great disciple. The reminder sharpened the focus on material stakes and personal pride. He then questioned the folly of sparring with prominent political juniors in the borderland mountains, casting the clash as a reckless gamble. The critique painted the conflict as an imprudent escalation. His mind drifted to family ties, noting a branch in Hana merely 20 ri away, implying kinship responsibility. The proximity suggested a hidden network influencing the turmoil. He asserted that their actions merely followed the great king's orders, probing what command drove them forward. The inquiry sought the source of obedience behind the swords. Their stated mission, to escort the little king, was examined, with suspicion whether leader Kong had taken decisive steps as they descended the mountain. The doubt pierced the veneer of loyalty. In a swift declaration, he denied any discipleship, insisting his name alone, Zhang, was sufficient. The proclamation stripped away pretensions, grounding identity in a single word. Zhang Yilong, undeterred by youthful immaturity, laid responsibility on the youth to hoist the flag and threaten their foes. The demand transformed a symbolic act into a weapon of resolve. He proposed a proper dialogue, questioning whether prestige could shield them from accountability. The suggestion hinted that renowned talent alone would not excuse misdeeds. A sigh of relief passed as he noted the restraint shown by not drawing swords immediately, pondering who would erupt into fury without cause. The observation revealed a hidden tension waiting to ignite. He probed whether harassing mountain bandits and political factions served as a means to raise reputation, exposing motives beneath the clashes. The inquiry peeled back the veneer of honor. He declared that regardless of citizenship or gender, martial artists bound to their craft become the black principle, destined for subjugation. The statement cast them as inevitable victims of a larger design. With grim resolve, he commanded the capture of their opponents, vowing to deliver a nightmarish fate to the black principles that day. The promise of hell intensified the looming dread. He recounted that bandits never swing their swords at innocents, only targeting criminals and the defense corps, noting the Jade Emperor's spirit had settled in the Green Forest 2 centuries past. The historical note added gravitas to their code. He praised the juniors for daring to view them as enemies, calling the assumption a commendable act. The flattery masked a strategic assessment of loyalty. A distant reference arose to the heavenly demon fortress, a looming stronghold of legend. Its mention evoked the specter of an overwhelming power. He explained that bandits relentlessly collect tolls from merchants, their vicious nature unchanged through time. The perpetual exploitation underscored their hardened existence. His exclamation at a clueless noble carried a tone of weary contempt, as he observed the aristocrat is obliviousness. The disdain highlighted the chasm between the elite and the rugged frontier. He noted the intertwined nature of the midfield with both criminal networks and governmental departments, hinting at a murky alliance tied to the green. The revelation painted a web of influence shrouding the battlefield. He distinguished legitimate authority from raw banditry, asserting that true power and outlaw deeds diverged sharply. The contrast sharpened the moral stakes of their conflict. He questioned whether intimidation and theft were inherently evil, then turned to the idea of establishing a grand inn to dominate commerce. The proposal blended ruthlessness with entrepreneurial ambition. He wondered if the proprietor of the rival inn was a civilian, urging that support should favor honest business rather than parasitic greed. The council urged ethical commerce. He reiterated that they were labeled criminals, only scraping the edges of the Gango group and merchants, probing the notion of honor while admitting ignorance of the 9 factions. The confession laid bare the fragmented understanding of their world. He likened the child as logic to the human nature of Yuk Tong, drawing a parallel between innocence and deeper instinct. The comparison offered insight into underlying motivations. He pinpointed a glaring weak point in the youth's argument, exposing a fissure that could unravel their stance. The observation threatened to destabilize confidence. Prompted, he demanded clarification of what the identified weak point truly entailed. The query pressed for deeper introspection. The discussion turns taut as an unnamed voice points out a massive loophole in the argument that has just been laid out. Tension sharpens in the council chamber, each breath holding the weight of potential betrayal. The revelation hangs like a dark crack in the foundation of their plans. Before anyone could react, a cautious figure presses for clarification, demanding to know exactly what loophole has been exposed. The room is uneasy. Murmur deepens, the question echoing the uncertainty seeded by the previous claim. The inquiry sharpens the focus on the fragile legality they cling to. With that realization lingering, an elder voice interjects that the very laws they rely upon are imperfect, riddled with gaps that betray the common folk. The acknowledgement adds a grim layer to the earlier dispute, suggesting that the very framework of authority is flawed. A collective sigh passes through the assembly, each member feeling the weight of systemic decay. Meanwhile, memories of a dark winter surface as an unnamed chronicler recounts how mountain bandits once seized every grain of relief during a famine 7 years prior. The recollection drags the present debate back into the stark reality of starving villages and broken promises. The image of empty granaries sharpens the urgency behind the legal arguments. With that memory still raw, the speaker, his voice trembling, reveals that the Gawung stronghold is bandit gang brutally slaughtered and beat the commoners who dared to protect the relief grains, and that his own father fell among the victims. The personal loss turns abstract injustice into a burning vendetta, infecting the council is discourse with raw grief. The confession deepens the moral chasm that the earlier loophole exposed. Yet, before the anger could fully ignite, the speaker pivots, noting that the notorious Yang Chanho of Gawung stronghold is actually affiliated with the 72 Green Forest stronghold, and questions whether the Green Forest's laws can truly govern every stronghold. This tangled lineage adds another layer of complexity, suggesting that the very authority they invoke may be entangled with the perpetrators. The doubt casts a shadow over any claim of universal jurisdiction. Still carrying the weight of that tangled authority, a skeptical voice demands how a law riddled with flaws can even be called a law within the province. The challenge slices through the lingering justifications, forcing the council to confront the hypocrisy of their governance. The murmurs grow louder, each syllable a blade against complacency. With that accusation echoing, another participant argues that the name of the law is merely a banner for plundering the weak, rendering the opposing logic invalid. The accusation turns abstract debate into a moral indictment, painting the legal facade as a tool of oppression. The tension in the chamber tightens, as the notion of justice teeters on a precipice. Meanwhile, a veteran states that many factions have long forgotten the revised statutes, warning that attention should not be given to those clinging stubbornly to antiquated customs. This reminder underscores the stagnation that has allowed injustice to fester. The council's focus shifts, recognizing the inertia that binds their world. Before the discussion could settle, an insightful observation draws a parallel. Orthodox factions, like the bandits, would resort to brute force to seize power, charging forward with swords and cruelty. The comparison blurs the line between lawmen and outlaws, deepening the moral ambiguity. The revelation stirs a restless undercurrent among the listeners. Still bearing that unsettling parallel, a questioning figure probes whether the group truly embodies chivalry, offers aid during calamities, and if the commoner's affection for the Namgung clan is sincere. The inquiry seeks to strip away pretense, demanding proof of virtue amidst the chaos. The room hushes, each heart weighing the sincerity of past deeds. Yet beneath that scrutiny, another voice bluntly declares that bastards within the Namgung clan wield their strength for greed, neglecting the needy and lacking any trace of chivalry or justice. The condemnation adds a personal sting, accusing those once revered of betrayal. The accusation reverberates, feeding the growing distrust. With that stark image forming, a whisper adds that these clan members brandish swords to extort fees from the powerless, turning protection into intimidation. The menace paints a vivid scene of oppression, reinforcing the earlier claims of greed. The tension swells as the weight of their tyranny becomes undeniable. Meanwhile, a former mountain bandit steps forward, recounting his futile attempts to avoid confrontation and instead speak truthfully to the young king about the clan's transgressions. His confession reveals a rare willingness to bridge worlds, despite fearing retribution. The narrative offers a glimmer of hope amidst the prevailing darkness. Yet, before the council could fully absorb his plea, another figure admits bewilderment over the significance of a green blood cape, explaining he wears it solely because an old man bestowed it upon him. The simple attachment hints at deeper loyalties hidden beneath modest gestures. The revelation adds a personal thread to the tangled tapestry. Still contemplating the cape as mystery, a curious voice inquires about the path to becoming a martial artist within the Namgung clan. The question underscores the allure of power even among those questioning its morality. The request hangs in the air, inviting both ambition and skepticism. Before an answer could be formed, a blunt rebuke rings out, dismissing the very notion of joining the Namgung clan as ridiculous nonsense. The curt dismissal reflects the deep contempt many feel toward the clan's corrupted reputation. The clash of aspiration and derision sharpens the atmosphere. Still echoing the scorn, another participant lashes out, labeling the hopeful aspirant a bandit, equating his ambition with the very outlaws they denounce. The accusation stings, weaving personal insult into the broader debate. The tension reaches a fevered pitch, the room bristling with accusations. Meanwhile, a seasoned elder clarifies that the Green Forest belongs to the larger faction, yet the clan offers no place for unorthodox individuals, and the master-disciple bond remains unbreakable. This insight underscores the rigid hierarchy that chokes any deviation. The realization deepens the sense of entrapment felt by the outlier. Before the weight of tradition could settle, a frustrated voice questions whether his interlocutor is deaf, noting that he has never performed the ritual of 9 bows, an essential rite of passage. The critique highlights the gulf between expected reverence and lived experience. The comment fuels an undercurrent of resentment. Yet, amid the rising tension, a pragmatic suggestion emerges: to secure a letter bearing the Green Forest King's seal or to obtain a recommendation from a direct line member of the Namgung clan. This route offers a glimmer of legitimacy within the tangled bureaucracy. The proposal hangs as a possible lifeline. Meanwhile, an eager scribe steps forward, volunteering to draft the recommendation letter and probing what the aspirant's true purpose may be. The offer introduces a moment of cooperation amidst the discord. The dialogue hints at a tentative alliance. Before the gathering could dissolve, a stern command instructs the aspirant to stay at the lowest rank, emphasizing that rank matters little to the larger scheme, and then the council disperses. The dismissal underscores the futility of seeking swift elevation. The departure leaves a lingering echo of resigned ambition. Meanwhile, the captain, eyes narrowed, questions whether they should release the captive and seeks guidance on the next move. The query reflects the lingering uncertainty about handling the now-ranked individual. The tension of command hangs heavily. Before the captain could decide, a clear warning is issued: should a signal flare ignite, they must confront the Heavenly Dragon combat squad in battle. The threat raises the stakes, turning a political dispute into imminent warfare. The specter of combat looms over the hesitant commanders. Yet, amidst the looming clash, an urgent order demands that they first retrieve the green blood cape before pursuing the enemy. The directive binds the symbolic artifact to the forthcoming conflict. The urgency sharpens the focus of the troops. Meanwhile, a puzzled observer wonders why the lowest-ranked warrior occupies a seat beside them in the horse-drawn carriage. The question underscores the oddity of his presence amidst seasoned fighters. The curiosity adds another layer to his enigmatic rise. Before the carriage could roll further, an offhand remark surfaces about kicking a rival for a sister's favor, followed by a suggestion to take a walk, citing his excellent stamina. The anecdote blends personal rivalry with physical prowess. The light-hearted tease momentarily eases the tension. Meanwhile, the conversation turns to whether they should afford respect to the lowest-ranked warrior, noting that he was once the first disciple of the Green Forest King. This revelation reframes his humble position as a legacy of honor. The debate now balances merit against rank. Before the discussion could settle, the group counts themselves, 7 in total, and one queries whether the second brother among them is Iriel. The identification seeks to clarify internal hierarchy. The naming adds specificity to the collective. Meanwhile, a keen observation points out the intelligence of one member, while also noting that the third figure is a daughter, breaking traditional expectations. The acknowledgement of her role adds nuance to the assembly. The dynamic shifts as gender roles surface. Before the assembly could move on, the captain announces that the daughter's name is Jang Sambong, granting her identity within the ranks. The naming cements her presence among the 7. The revelation gives her a personal anchor. Meanwhile, a thoughtful voice asserts that there must be a reason behind the recent summons, noting they intended to request something from the listener. The implication hints at hidden motives lurking beneath the overt actions. The anticipation builds. Before the purpose could be clarified, the group admits they cannot conceive how one of their own might join the Great Young Dragon Summit given their current identity, questioning whether anyone else has already done so. The admission of uncertainty underscores the barriers of status and lineage. The lingering doubt hangs heavy. Meanwhile, a stern decree follows: they will treat the listener as a Namgung clan warrior, insisting that even a 17-year-old must speak with formal deference. The edict reinforces the rigid hierarchy and expectation of respect. The imposition sets a clear, if oppressive, standard. Before the age hierarchy could be ignored, a curious voice inquires about the ages of the assembled, only to learn that each member surpasses the listener in years. The revelation highlights the youth's precarious position amid seasoned veterans. The age gap adds another layer of intimidation. Meanwhile, as the convoy moves forward, the leader announces they are nearly at the first gathering point, the moment when plans will coalesce. The proximity fuels both anticipation and fatigue. The nearing arrival marks a tactical milestone. Before the group could settle, a keen scout claims to spot the enemy ahead, remarking that they must endure time alongside those brutish, brainless brawns. The observation mixes urgency with frustration at the looming clash of raw strength. The tension sharpens as the battlefield looms. Meanwhile, another warrior asks for identification of the approaching force, noting the rarity of seeing such heavily muscled figures within the Green Forest stronghold. The query underscores the abnormality of the impending opponents. The mystery deepens as the silhouettes draw nearer. Clad in the mantle of the newly crowned Blade King, Peng Gak steps into the arena, his proclamation ringing clear that the blade is the ultimate weapon. His confidence steadies the crowd, setting the tone for the fierce discourse that will follow. Still carrying the echo of his coronation, Peng Gak's thoughts turn to the treachery he endured 3 years prior, a betrayal that forged his belief that raw strength alone defines truth. The memory sharpens his resolve, casting every future clash in the stark light of survival. With that hardened conviction still burning, he surveys the gathering of the young patriarch, Jae-gal, and Nam-gung, dismissing any concern for Jae-gal as irrelevant. His disdain hangs over the assembly, hinting at the ruthless hierarchy he now embraces. Before he could steady himself, Peng Gak challenges an unseen presence, questioning whether they belong to his clan while admiring their physique and proposing an arm wrestling test. The invitation crackles with both curiosity and an unspoken demand for proof of superiority. Yet beneath that calm provocation, he scoffs at the lack of internal energy, threatening to shatter the opponent's arms should they attempt to rely on it. The warning underscores his belief that raw power must not be masked by hidden arts. With that warning lingering, he remarks on the straightforward nature of the contest, suggesting 1 or 3 rounds to gauge true manhood. His words paint the duel as a crucible where only genuine strength can endure. Meanwhile, he observes the wrestling match unfold, noting a participant who carries the mannerisms of the Peng clan. The sight fuels his assessment of lineage and technique within the chaotic fray. Still bearing the weight of the ongoing spectacle, Peng Gak formally announces the arrival of the new Blade King. The proclamation echoes through the crowd, cementing his authority amidst the clashing bodies. Before the cheers could settle, he accuses an opponent of drawing upon internal energy, branding the act as cheating. The accusation slices through the tension, exposing the fragile trust among the combatants. Yet beneath that accusation, disappointment settles in his heart, leading him to refuse another round. His withdrawal signals a deeper frustration with those who bend the rules of combat. With that refusal echoing, he muses whether the man who bested the new Blade King is even human, perhaps a descendant of the reckless Blade Emperor. The speculation widens the mystery, hinting at a lineage shrouded in legend. Still pondering that possibility, he observes how rare it is to value external arts over internal ones, noting they are among the few who share this perspective. His appreciation of this rarity adds a subtle reverence to the unfolding discourse. Before his thoughts could settle, he questions why 16 external disciplines are held above internal arts, reminding himself that this debate has echoed since the dawn of martial practice. The reflection underscores the age-old clash of philosophy within the world of Murim. Yet beneath the scholarly rumination, he warns that obsession with a single art breeds narrow-mindedness, urging a balanced cultivation of both external and internal techniques. His counsel rings as a plea for harmony amidst the relentless pursuit of power. With that counsel lingering, he identifies the greatest flaw of their sect, an inferiority complex toward swords, driving an unhealthy obsession with blades. He acknowledges that mastering any martial path is a monumental challenge, regardless of weapon. Still bearing that awareness, he questions the sensibility of training spear, blade, and sword for 100, 1,000, and 16,000 days respectively, suggesting such regimens border on folly. His skepticism probes the limits of discipline and ambition. Before his doubt could fade, he wonders if a spear could truly be mastered in 100 days, recalling Zhang's reliance on a sword and pondering whether enemies could even cross the Gangban Bridge. The contemplation blends tactical curiosity with a hint of strategic caution. Yet beneath those tactical musings, he acknowledges the strengths of swords yet condemns the narrow view that they alone dominate the battlefield. He points out the myriad sword sects that integrate fist and palm, expanding the definition of blade mastery. Before the discourse could end, he remarks that it would be strange if even the sword god did not believe swords to be the supreme weapon. The thought adds a mythic weight to the ongoing debate. Still carrying that mythic echo, he traces the origins of early Murim to animal-inspired fist and palm techniques, noting that without them humanity would still cling to bows, once the strongest armaments. His historical lens widens the perspective on weapon evolution. Yet beneath the historical recollection, he questions why Zhang, founder of the Wudang sect, transformed his invented fist into an enlightened sword art, insisting such alchemy could not occur without blades. The query underscores the inseparable bond between fist and sword in the sect is legacy. Before the answer could surface, he observes that although other weapons may claim supremacy, swords earn the title of king of weapons through the central narrative of martial history. His statement crowns the blade as the pivotal force shaping warriors' destinies. Still bearing the weight of that crown, he challenges the opponent's belief that weak swords are the best, probing the depth of their conviction. The challenge sharpens the intellectual duel alongside the physical one. Yet beneath the probing question, he wonders how a warrior defeated by a new clan can still dare to challenge him, reminding everyone of life's inevitable ups and downs. His urging to Sir Peng to lift his spirits adds a fleeting moment of camaraderie. Before his encouragement could settle, he dismisses the Jagal demon, recalling his 3-day entrapment by sorcery that left him unable to drink water. The memory of that harrowing ordeal fuels his disdain for the lingering threat. Still carrying that lingering bitterness, he notes the absence of the Tang clan, mentions the Sima clan is withdrawal, and suggests it may be time for them to depart. His observation hints at the fracturing alliances within the gathering. Yet beneath that observation, he ponders how one could survive in such an environment while remaining connected to it, a paradox of existence. The contemplation adds a philosophical layer to the chaotic meeting. Before his thoughts could drift, he expresses hope that the 5 great families will host the next Young Dragon Summit, urging a lady to carry the message forward. His hope serves as a quiet promise of future convergence. Still bearing that promise, he advises against bias toward weak bastards, urging fairness even among the lowly. His counsel reflects a yearning for impartial judgment amidst hierarchy. Yet beneath his counsel, he declares that a match is about to commence, the arena humming with imminent conflict. The proclamation sets the stage for another clash of wills. Before the match could unfold, he greets the assembled participants, presuming they hail from the 5 great families, and thanks them for their arduous journey. His gratitude acknowledges the sacrifices made to gather at this pivotal moment. Still carrying that gratitude, he pays respects to the elder of the Manhwa sect, bewildered that he could not recognize the younger member despite having attended the summit 3 years prior. The confusion hints at deeper currents beneath the surface of old acquaintances. Yet beneath the lingering curiosity, he urges them to arrive swiftly, declaring Manhwa an ideal place to soothe travel fatigue. His invitation blends hospitality with strategic positioning. Before travelers could settle, he reflects that enduring dry gold signals the arrival of spring when blossoms finally emerge, while plum blossoms remain unchanged. The metaphor mirrors the resilience required of those who endure hardship. Still carrying that metaphorical weight, he comments on the surrounding scenery, suggesting they carry a gourd of wine, ascend to the peak, and drink while savoring the view. His suggestion paints a serene pause amid the tumultuous journey. Yet beneath the tranquil scene, he notes that between ages 172 to 177 the individual became a bandit, a role that suited him perfectly. The observation ties the rugged path to a fitting destiny. Before the narrative could shift, he inquires who this person might be, recalling a belief that they hailed from the Namgong clan yet noting they appear more a merchant than a clan member. His curiosity narrows the mystery surrounding the enigmatic figure. Still carrying that curiosity, he probes the stranger's trade, asking what wares they sell and assuming they possess considerable wealth. The inquiry underscores the importance of material influence in the gathering. Yet beneath that practical concern, he explains that food for future leaders traditionally consists of a simple lump of meat and bone, cooked over fire and eaten whole, questioning the fuss over such fare. His remark trivializes extravagance in favor of primal sustenance. Before the discourse could end, he labels the figure an ignorant mountain bandit, a final judgment casting a shadow over the lingering doubts. The condemnation concludes the episode with a stark, unsettling verdict.